और सायरन्स बज रही हैं। ये टेल अवीव है और टेल अवीव में आप देख सकते हैं एक के बाद एक सायरन बज रही है और लगातार हमले ईरान की तरफ से किए जाते हैं। जोरदार हमले लगातार ईरान की तरफ से किए जाते हैं। हालांकि इस्राइल और यूएस की तरफ से भी ईरान पर लगातार हमला किया जा रहा है, लेकिन ये आप देख सकते हैं किस तरीके से सब कुछ रुक जाता है और जो गाड़ियों में लोग होते हैं फौरन वो शेल्टर में जाते हैं और इर्द गिर्द सन्नाटा छा जाता है। जो जहां पर है वो वहां पर ही रुक जाता है। जो हम देख पा रहे हैं यहाँ इस इलाके में सनसनी मच जाती है, अफरा तफरी मच जाती है जो ही सायरन बज जाती है। जोरदार धमाका हुआ, जोरदार धमाका लगता है यहाँ ही बिल्कुल इर्द गिर्द ही किसी एरिया को निशाना बनाया गया। तो जोरदार धमाका फिर से यहाँ पे हुआ। ये सारा इलाका हिल गया इस धमाके से। तो ये सिलसिला लगातार जारी है।
They said there's been a warning from the Israelis that there could be a strike coming in. So we're going to get out of here, Alex.
Where they are going?
I don't know, but we need to get out. Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
No, but we've just been trying to film at this location here in Dahir, and we've been told to move away quickly now.
Yeah.
People were showing us their phones saying, look, there's a warning coming in. Go around this guy. We've come into what is the most dangerous part of the Lebanese capital, which is a very important stronghold of Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militia group. It's the place where Israel has been focusing, and you can hear the gunshots outside there, that Israel has been focusing its activity, its intensive campaign of airstrikes against the Hezbollah group. That's often, we're told, a warning to local residents who don't have cell phones or don't have that communication to tell them there may be an Israeli strike incoming. So we're going to get out of here.
Fairly good progress towards Tehran. It is a very, very long drive though. Some things that we are seeing, we already went past one place where apparently there had just been an airstrike. There was thick black smoke billowing over one place, so it seemed like a fairly fresh airstrike. Also some destroyed buildings that we saw from our vantage point as we were driving past. The other thing that I would also say is that there are definitely more checkpoints than usual. We did see checkpoints with fairly heavily armed security personnel. Other than that though, it seems as though things are going on and we certainly don't see any sign of order collapsing here. Taking a quick break for a coffee along the way. We've been driving for several hours. There's a couple of things that we've noticed. Number one is that, first of all the shops are open. All the shops are really well stocked, even with fresh things like, for instance, fruits and vegetables. Coffee obviously also available as well. And then also the gas stations. There's no long lines as gas stations. Fuel seems readily available and you just don't see any sort of degree of panic anywhere.
Ukraine says it may have a role to play in the Iran war.
Партнери звертаються до нас, до України, щоб ми допомогли із захистом від шахедів, з експертизою, з реальною роботою. Були запити щодо цього і від американської сторони.
Now, obviously, Kyiv is stretched pretty thin. Russian attacks are not letting up. But this is an opportunity for Ukraine. President Zelensky has long argued that there are benefits to supporting his country that go beyond simply stopping Russian aggression. And now he has proof of that. Ukraine has spent the last several years defending against an exponential increase in Russian attacks using Iranian-designed Shahed drones, the same type of drones now raining down on America's Gulf allies. And Ukraine has been constantly improving its defenses, from electronic warfare to mobile machine gun units, and now increasingly interceptor drones. And something like interceptor drones are much more cost-effective against relatively inexpensive Shaheds than, say, the missiles and fighter jets currently being deployed in the Middle East. But there's a quid pro quo. President Zelensky is now offering to supply interceptor drones to Middle East countries and share Ukraine's expertise in return for Patriot air defense missiles. In other words, Ukraine will help stop Iran if its allies do more to help stop Russia.
I'm leaving my home. That's what my friend Kim told me today when she left Dubai early this morning on one of the sporadic flights that Emirates is operating out of Dubai. Kim was heading to Chicago, finally getting out, despite a lot of frustration with the U.S. government.
There was a little communication, not too much, to be honest with you. I was very disappointed in that.
Kim feels really lucky that she and her teenage daughter were able to get seats on this flight. I mean, Oman Air, which is operating flights out of Muscat, is telling people driving from Dubai to allow 12 hours just to cross the border into Oman. This war is forcing Kim to leave a place that she's lived for 30 years, a place that's home, the place she raised her 3 children, where they went to school. It is home.
None of this was here when I was here 30 years ago. It just feels depressing and sad to leave it all.
Kim filmed the Burj Khalifa on her way to the airport this morning, and she's a journalist, but I have to say, every single time I've been to Dubai, I take that picture, I take that video, because that building stands for the wealth and ambition of the entire Gulf. And now, no one knows what's next. But for Kim, at least right now, it's another goodbye.
Grateful to leave, I'm sad to leave. I've called Dubai my home for the past 30 years, so it's been a bittersweet moment, but I know I'll be back.
All right, we'll continue to bring you all the developments and ground reports on that front. With that, we're going to slip into a very short break. Don't go anywhere. News and updates will continue on the other side on CNN News 18.
Devastation, a direct hit by a missile.
Picture is that the U.S. is not able to defend.
Of a drone of massive, the number of horrific missiles.
Where is it that Iran is actually placing its resources right now?
Tabriz, Sanandaj, Kemal Shah. And this is now what they are doing since yesterday. They are conducting more or less organized.
This is our network phone. We've got some more images here. We've got another image of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Manamabad.
Oman, Saudi Arabia, and the Strait to Europe.
Iran now has been completely, in some ways, dominated.
With ballistic missile attack. It means the Kuwaiti air defense was under big strain.
I would request my colleague Akash Sharma to also join me here in the studio so that we can take this forward and understand exactly what are we looking at, because it's a choke point. It is rather vital. We are talking about the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the global oil really passes the Strait of Hormuz. And if you can take a look at the traffic here, we have just placed it here on the map. This is the Strait of Hormuz. We've just expanded it for our viewers to see exactly what are we talking about as far as this Gulf of Oman is concerned. It divides Iran and Oman. And I request Akash also to come join me here. This is the traffic that we are looking at here, Akash. All of these red dots, of course, talk about the stranded ships. If you could just help us explain to our viewers, how badly is this going to be impacting India, A, and the other routes that we continue to talk about, whether it is, of course, the Cape of Good Hope for that matter, or the other route which has the Houthis also, really eyeing vessels, particularly after this escalation by the U.S. and Israel on Iran.
Right. Reha, you see a number of aspects that I'll talk about. First of all, these images, this is a playback from marine traffic where you are seeing these visuals of these vessels. These are oil tankers or the sort of vessels, that we have in this particular area. This is Persian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, and in fact, this Strait of Hormuz. This is the particular area that is the contested area as of now. while Iran is claiming that they have not restricted any sort of traffic, they are of course blaming it on US. But then on the other side, we have the reality where we know, in fact, agencies like IFC, IOR are telling us that how more than 10 ships have been targeted in the last 3 to 4 days. And this is particular area where we have, in fact, this is from 2nd March, Griha, this particular playback. But then we have the recent imageries as well. And these recent imageries are somewhere suggesting that how more than 37 Indian ships, till yesterday, were stranded there. The north part of it for outward traffic, and the south part of this particular area is for inward traffic. And we say that around 40% of the Indian crude comes from this particular route. So we are of course going to be impacted, and that is the reason why when it is about the 30 days relaxation or the sort of tweet that is coming. And this is in fact from the 4th March, the recent images from the same area where we have these vessels that are basically not docking, but we can see in fact the group of these vessels that have got oil tankers, and in fact the other variety of vessels that are very much there.
Akash, why we are putting out these images and we are constantly looking at it on a day-wise basis. So help us for our viewers to understand how bad this has become after this choke point has been practically blocked. Of course, the blockage announcement really cannot wholly come in from Tehran because there are underwriters who look at these vessels, insurance is involved, and once a conflict zone really is something that we're talking about, the insurance also fall back. Now that the US is talking about insuring the vessels, first it spoke about really giving an access, carrying the US Navy really coming in and escorting these vessels. How much of practicality do you think and purpose do you see in that announcement, considering that happened way back during the Iraq-Iran war, the 8-year war? So about that as well. And now with the DSC announcement, the fact that it will be coming in from the taxpayers' money, do you think US is all over the place with what's doing about this choke point?
Look, Griha, there can be one logical argument that there should be some sort of understanding, at least for this particular region, as this is going to impact, the other nations as well. Countries like India, that has nothing to do with this particular war. But this particular, blockage will somewhere impact not just India, but other countries too. And that's the reason why there's a logical argument. But then Iran or US would say that why would we be coming on a conclusion on something that can...
A very warm welcome. You're watching CNN News 18 and we continue with our coverage on the Gulf, the Middle East, where, as you can see, day by day, the conflict is in fact escalating further. In fact, US and Israel have now said that this is only going to intensify, particularly in Lebanon and Iran. With me is, in fact, Prithvi Walia as well.
Iran, in fact, is also going ahead with a lot of posturing, saying we're almost waiting for the US troops to go ahead with the ground invasion. So there's lots lined up. We will be breaking down all those details trickling in. Let's quickly take a look at the day's top headlines.
As oil prices spike sharply, big energy boost for India. United States issues a 30-day waiver, allowing India to continue purchasing Russian oil.
Politics erupts after US waiver to India. Congress asks, why is Donald Trump dictating terms to Bharat?
US strikes intensify against the Iranian Navy, sinking 30 ships and hitting a drone ship. Iranian ballistic missile attacks drop 90%, while drone attacks fall by 83%.
Iran hits Bahrain with a missile, striking a state-run oil refinery alongside attacks on a hotel and residential buildings as well. Fires have been extinguished. The refinery continues operating. No casualties, fortunately, have been reported so far.
Indian Navy says it promptly launches search and rescue, deploying a P-81 Maritime patrol aircraft and diverting ships to assist Sri Lanka in rescuing the crew of Iranian warship IRIS Dana.
And President Donald Trump says he must be involved in choosing Iran's leadership going forward, calling Mojtaba Khamenei unacceptable. Also urged selection of a leader who brings peace to the region.
All right, on that note, we're getting in breaking inputs. This as the West Asia war enters India's backyard. India's Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh has said that in this era of changing global geopolitics, oceans have once again come to the center of the world's power balance at such a time. Maritime nation, it is India's responsibility to provide leadership with confidence, capability and even a clear vision of sorts. So as we can see, there are in fact already potshots coming from the opposition with regards to how India has let it happen in the Indian Ocean. But going to quickly toss it across to Kritsween for more.
It's a strong comment coming in from Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh. He is focused on India's naval capabilities. And do remember, a lot of conversations currently amid the ongoing war are surrounding naval prowess, what this means for each of the stakeholders concerned. I do want to bring in Akash into the conversation. Akash, put this reaction in perspective for us and the bigger message that Raksha Mantri is sending out.
Right, so 2-3 important things that Raksha Mantri is pointing out. First one, of course, is that, to avoid the supply chain disruptions, we need to be self-reliant. And that's the reason why India has been focusing on self-reliance. Straight from 2014, we know that how there has been a focus on self-reliance. But then he's also saying that how oceans are at the center, of, in fact, everything as far as maritime domain is concerned. So we know that how important it is for India, given the fact that we have, in fact, the eastern seaboard, western seaboard, and Indian Navy very much deployed in the Indian Ocean region. And Rajnath Singh somewhere stressing on the fact. And in fact, Indian Navy has been operating on the motto, that whosoever rules in the maritime domain will rule the world. And this is what has been highlighted by Raksha Mantri once again. And he is saying that India's responsibility is to provide leadership somewhere, Kritsween.
Okay, tell us a little bit also, Akash, since we're touching upon India's naval capabilities. The entire conversation that has been ongoing about the U.S. submarine striking the IRS Dena, what is or has been India's limited response thus by far? We've seen a lot of reactions trickle in, and there's a little bit of instigation that's also underway, really asking questions of the central government, how much they were in the know-how of things, whether there was any sort of communication that happened. What has been the specific response so far?
Right, so we know this for a fact that how Indian Navy has launched search and rescue operation, because this has happened very close, in fact, to our maritime boundary. Of course, it was in the international waters, and this is somewhere the MRCC area, that is the responsibility area of Sri Lanka. But then too, we had, in fact, sent our 2 warships for the search and rescue operation. Remember, the place where this incident happened is 40 nautical miles away from the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka, the area that is very much in the responsibility of Sri Lanka. But Kritsween, the important part and important aspect that I want to highlight here, here is one interesting image from the IFR. If I can show you, if we can zoom on the particular screen, where we can show these are the 3 ships initially that were all set to participate. In fact, in the...
These are the 3?
Yes. So these are the 3 ships that were initially all set to participate. One is the logistics ship. The second one is, of course, the frigate, and third one is for the amphibious operation. Initially, these all 3 ships were all set to participate, but then because of the conditions, we know that how only Dena, came for the particular exercise in fact, the IFR and also the Milan exercise. And now the remaining 2 ships. One is, of course...
Let's walk to the big screen there, Akash, and maybe we can open these there and you can explain the story better to our viewers. We'll try and open the same visual set right here behind us. But yes, you were making a point. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, these 3 ships, in fact, were all set to, be a part of the entire exercise, International Fleet Review, and, in fact, the Milan. There we have INS Lavan, that is, used for amphibious operations, is one ship that we have seen in the Persian Gulf area, very much deployed, used to be deployed earlier in the Persian Gulf. Second one is this Bushehr, that is a logistics ship that is generally used to provide fuel, to provide ration and everything else. And then we have this INS Dena. This is one frigate that actually took part in IFR and Milan. Now, initially, this was the plan, and this is from the official document of Indian Navy, Kritsween, where they had put out this document saying that how Iran is going to take part with the kind of platforms that they have. And these are the 3 ships that were initially going to take part, but then, for a fact, we know that only INS Dena was there. We know that how these 3 ships were very much there in the vicinity of Indian Ocean region. And that is the reason why now the second ship, this has approached Sri Lanka, in fact, has asked for some sort of docking in Sri Lanka, and we know that Sri Lanka has come out with a fact.
So they've asked for docking permission, but they did not participate in the naval exercise that was underway in India. What exactly is it doing in the international waters very close to the Sri Lankan coast then?
Possibly initially they had a plan, and then, the plan got changed, because this is the official document they had somewhere conveyed to Indian Navy as well, that how we are going to come. So possibly they, in fact, came in the international waters in the Indian Ocean region, and then their plan got changed, and then we ended up seeing only one ship, that is INS Dana. And why I'm stressing on this particular document is because of the fact that this is the official document of Indian Navy that was put out on the website, that how President Draupadi Murmu is going to, witness the fleet review where international participation is going to be there. And this is also a reason why these 3 ships were there in the Indian Ocean region, very close to Sri Lanka, Kritswin.
Yeah. So there was another narrative that was being peddled by the United States, that Iran mistakenly thought that its warships, its naval vessels are safe in international water, and hence a message has been sent out to the Iranian leadership, which also then stands defeated, isn't it? Because this was all pre-planned, and we have an official document supporting it now.
Exactly, and in fact, there are theories. In fact, we have Iran ambassador, in New Delhi, coming out with this statement that how it was a training ship, it was unarmed, and that's when it was hit without any sort of warning. So all of these things are coming. Of course, there are several sort of narratives, but the important part here is that all 3 ships were there in the international water in the Indian Ocean region because they were initially going to be part of the International Fleet Review in Milan, but then we had only INS Dana, and these 2 ships are still there in the Indian Ocean region.
Now, there's a reason why there's strong objection being raised by the Iranian leadership when the United States decided to go after INS Dana. They're saying that this was an unarmed ship, and 80 lives, remember, have been lost. Akash, many thanks for joining us with that quick update. We need to quickly shift our focus back to more news that we're tracking. There are several aspects to the ongoing conflict, viewers, that need urgent attention. There is a narrative war that's also out in full swing. But that said, we're going to try decode each of those facts that are being put out by the stakeholders concerned, the 3 countries currently participating.
Because we've already seen how this is now spilling on to West Asia. Remember, this is day 7 of the conflict. Intense military exchanges continue between Iran and the United States. Israel's coalition with escalation now taking place is having regional impacts in all of Gulf. In fact, across Middle East, Iran is launching fresh waves of missile and drone strikes at Israeli territory, and even the U.S. bases in Gulf states, triggering alerts, even interceptions in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Qatar. But more importantly, there is an admission coming in from the Gulf nations and the US as well that they could have perhaps been better prepared had there been a word of caution extended before Israel and the United States actually embarked on this conflict. Israeli forces are responding with air operations, including strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. In the Gulf, Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps has reportedly struck a US oil tanker in the northern Gulf. It's caused fire damage. Gulf states continue to tighten their own air defenses. They are scanning routines amid ongoing threats. Kritswi.
Okay, what we'll try and do is talk about the losses that have been suffered by some of these US military assets that are currently located in the Middle East. So Gulf nations, we're going to focus on what kind of damages have these US military assets seen. Because do remember, that's the big claim that Iran continues to make. So picture number 1 on your screens, the Muwafaq air base. This is the Muwafaq Salti air base in Jordan. Once again, you see the kind of damages it has sustained, it has suffered. These are claims that the Iranian leadership continues to make on how we're not giving up as yet. So that's picture proof number 1. Do remember, all of these 10 to 11 locations, these are military assets of the United States, military bases of the US located in the Middle East. And that's how the Middle East has been dragged into this war, something which is strongly being objected to by some of these nations. Look at the visuals that have been put out from Qatar. This is the Dahl in Qatar, wherein you can see, again, the kind of damage that we've seen. In fact, a lot of experts have been suggesting that the communications radar, etc., has has been taken down. That was the prime focus of the Iranian missiles. So they are, of course, resorting to firing missiles, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, also drones. Let's not forget that mass-produced, low-cost drones that Iran is putting to use. That's really their modus operandi, and the result is this on your screens. You see the kind of damage we've seen already come in from Qatar. Now, before and after the third battery. Now, why is this important? Because, again, it's one of the most expensive air defense systems, and the big claim of what the situation looked like before and what it looks like as of today, again, through these satellite images, very, very clear for one and all to see that there is some sort of explosion or damage that this battery, the third battery, has received near the Al Sadir in UAE. So UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, all of these military assets of the United States of America have directly been targeted. And we're going to put out another visual set which talks about what else we've seen in the Middle East. Now, do remember, the concern here is, given limited interceptors, will these Gulf nations not be able to retaliate to the Iranian drones, the Iranian missiles? That is a concern that experts are weighing in on. So we'll pull out the other footage that we have of the kind of damage we've seen in some of these US bases located in all of Middle East. Do remember, the other concern is also, viewers, these US military bases are situated or located in densely populated areas. Some areas, in fact, surrounded by residential complexes, and that's where the concern comes in and has already been raised by some of these Gulf nations. In fact, they've very clearly highlighted how the United States needs to intervene on an urgent basis. To what extent and for how long they're going to continue to provide support or retaliate effectively to the Iranian attack remains to be seen still. So these are visual proof that has been put out by Iran time and again to say, look, we're not done as yet. In fact, Iran, through their foreign minister, has made it amply clear that we are now looking forward to the United States sending its ground troops. So invade Iran, and we'll tell you what this war and the outcome of it is going to look like. So these are pictures, visuals that so far Iran has put out. Do remember, a lot of information warfare is also slowly shaping up, and we're seeing Israel on top of this game. Israel, through several satellite images, visuals, has been speaking of the kind of damages it has inflicted, not just in all of Iran, also the Lebanon, the Hezbollah in Lebanon that continues to go after Israel, especially the northern part of the country. They've also been putting out proof to substantiate all of those claims. So these are before and after visuals.
Let me quickly now go across to Kritsween. All right, we're getting in the latest inputs right now. This is with regards to China now declaring that they have, in fact, released satellite imagery of the damage that they have. As far as Iran is concerned, it's inflicted on the Al-Dhafra US base in the UAE. It's interesting to note that this imagery has, in fact, been shared by China over here. Let me, in fact, quickly show our viewers. This is the before and aftermath of the Al-Dhafra air base. Now, this is a UAE air base. It's a US base in the UAE. It's extremely significant to the United States. Why so? Because it's used for reconnaissance. It's used for air refueling as well as for servicing of the aircraft. And we've been constantly telling you how UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, these three US allies in the Gulf are constantly being targeted. So if you look at this overall image, this is the Al-Dhafra airbase over here. Now, what's important to highlight is that it also uses the THAAD system to intercept all the incoming missiles. This is the Al-Dhafra airbase. And perhaps I could quickly bring in Akash also to weigh in. Akash, earlier during the day, remember we were talking about how the THAAD has been deployed to intercept the missiles, and perhaps it managed to do it this time around as well. But how significant is Al-Dhafra, the US airbase in UAE?
It is one of the major air bases, in fact, in West Asia as far as US is concerned. And, normally the aircraft like F-35, several AWACS and reconnaissance aircraft are generally deployed. This is the satellite image, that is somewhere depicting the sort of damage that has happened to this particular, in fact, airbase. And we have been given to understand that this is 30 to 35 kilometers away from Abu Dhabi.
All right.
In fact, south of Abu Dhabi, and the kind of operations that they are carrying out in the Persian Gulf, or in fact in the region close to Oman.
All right.
So this is the in fact area from where they are carrying out the sort of activities, and this is one of the major air bases. And this image is somewhere depicting the sort of damage that has happened after the strikes from Iran. So these images are released by China, where these images are somewhere telling you the kind of damage that has happened. Of course, we know that U.S. was the one party that initiated this attack, but now as far as retaliation is concerned, so retaliation is coming in a stronger way, Akanksha.
Is this just a war of narratives that China has released these images yet again, or is this also an indication that China could perhaps be also involved in exchange of military technology with Iran?
So as far as satellite images are concerned, I don't think that these images can lie. But of course, there is a lot of narrative game that is happening. Of course, China, we know that which side of the table, China is standing, and with whom, it is standing as of now. But right now, these images are somewhere telling you the story, and it is somewhere highlighting the sort of retaliation that is coming.
The fact that they were able to bypass the THAAD.
Oh, yes, and in fact, just a while back we were discussing, Akanksha, that how THAAD batteries are very much targeted by Iran. The priority is that they should, target their air defense first, and then they will be, carrying out these sort of strikes on the military infrastructure. So we know, in fact, the satellite images from CNN are somewhere confirming that how in these countries, in countries like UAE, in Qatar, in, other countries, in Kuwait as well, we have THAAD air defense system very much targeted by Iranian strikes.
Thanks very much, Akash, for breaking it down for us. So this is a fresh development that's taken place today, that the THAAD defense system, the aerial defense system, is now on the target of Iran. For how long or in how much time will they be even be able to dismantle it is the key question. But it's over to Kritsveen for more perspective on this.
Missile battery being destroyed, proof being put out of the same. We are also being joined by a former diplomat, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. He's with us on the broadcast. Good afternoon, sir. Your thoughts really on the kind of proof that's being submitted on the destruction that Iran has managed to pull off. It's not just limited to the THAAD batteries. Also, in the latest, we're talking about the satellite images that have been shared by China on the kind of damage some of these U.S. military assets have seen in all of Middle East. Do you think, to take it from where Akanksha had left it, do you think China is also sharing military technology with Iran now in furthering its cause?
Good afternoon to you. China had been sharing satellite information for much before the war started, because they were anticipating something like this, though they may not have known when exactly it would start. But they were quite clear in their mind that a situation would come when America and Israel might attack Iran. That satellite information and other intelligence provided by China has been stored quite effectively by Iran and is being constantly put to use. So let me assert very clearly that even before the war started, China had been sending shipments of missiles and other sensitive equipment to Iran on a regular basis. There were at least 16 reported flights. So China may not be an active participant, but it's certainly helping Iran in multiple ways. The other thing is that Iran seems to have sources within the Gulf which are not known to us, perhaps even in Israel. Otherwise, it would not have pinpointed targets like Microsoft's ultra-secret center for Department of Defense of USA, which, according to some reports, has been destroyed yesterday night. There are other targets which Iran has destroyed very successfully.
All right.
So there are multiple sources which are helping Iran.
Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing all of those very significant details and for padding that story for our viewers as far as the THAAD batteries are concerned. Let me quickly go across to Sanjay Suri, who's also joining us live from Israel as we speak. Sanjay, Israel has declared that they've entered a new phase of war at the moment. We've seen renewed strikes targeting Lebanon, particularly Beirut overnight. Could you take us through the details of this new phase, as Israel is calling it?
Well, the new phase from Israel is clearly on two fronts. There is Iran that is continuing, and the attempt is to try and take out missile launch systems. We've had a number of claims from Israel and from the U.S. of successes on that front. I have to say that here in Tel Aviv, it's been rather quiet. The only missile or drone hit, the missile hit came on day one. That is February the 28th, and today we are into the 6th day of the war, and since that first day there has been no missile or drone hit into Tel Aviv here. So whether that is because the Iranians are strategically holding back and holding munitions in reserve for later use, or whether there has been a degree of degradation of the missile system, this is not very clear at the moment. But certainly on the second front, Israel appears to be moving, and appears to be moving faster and more forcefully than declared. What has been declared is that Israeli forces are moving up north in order to secure villages and to secure them against attacks by Hezbollah. But all the indications are that Israel is preparing for a very much stronger ground offensive in the direction of Lebanon.
Okay, yeah, and they're very effectively putting to use everything that stands to its advantage, including the advanced air force as well. And we've been able to see the kind of damage Israel has inflicted, not just in all of Iran, but in a few pockets in Lebanon as well, specifically targeting the Hezbollah. Thank you for that, Sanjay. We'll come back to you. There's breaking news coming in. We're learning that Saeed Khatibzadeh, Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran, says he has had a brief meeting with the Foreign Minister of India. So that's a bit of a breaking news update that's just coming in. Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran interacting with the External Affairs Minister is the latest that we've just learnt of. We also have a reaction on this. Let's quickly play it out.
CIA is in touch with Kurds, and they're saying that the Kurds are going to do help in the regime change in Iran. How would you like to react to this?
First of all, please do not demonize our Kurds.
Okay.
Our Kurds are the center to our identity, to the Iranian identity. We are very much proud of our Kurdish people inside Iran. You are talking about separatists,
yes,
who have been nourished by CIA and Mossad. We are born to fight separatism. Iran has a very strong identity. Iran is the oldest living civilization on earth, and we know how to defend our identity. And I'm sure that the first front against those separatists are the Kurds.
Sir, how do you look at Indian government gesture of signing the condolence book? Foreign Secretary came and signed the condolence book, sir.
Iran and India has old civilizational, roots with each other. We are Indo-Persian culture and civilization, and it is very much in the line with this cultural civilizational heritage, and we are attaching great importance to Iran-India relations. That vessel was by invitation of all Indian friends attending an exercise, international exercise. It was ceremonial, it was unloaded, it was unarmed, and the only precedent for that was during Nazi time, when they attacked unarmed vessels and armed ships away from combat zone. So Americans are exercising the practice of Nazi Germany when they attacked a ceremonial, unarmed and unloaded vessel. It is very unfortunate. Many of Iranian young sailors who were attending this exercise actually lost their lives, and it cannot go with impunity for those who actually did that.
Akanksha, very interesting. We've heard of this direct communication that's taken place between the Iranian leadership and also the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, and very categorically the word coming in from Iran is that we're not seeking a ceasefire at the moment, but any expectations that the leadership has from India at the moment?
So we heard what Saeed Khatibzadeh, the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran, has had to say. Remember, he's in the national capital for the ongoing Raisina dialogue. And yesterday we've seen something very historic and significant, which is India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, in fact, went on to sign that condolence book as the 3-day mourning period for the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has now begun. Now, there is enough symbolic messaging over here that goes over there, not just apart from India's strategic messaging over here when it comes to, signing of that condolence book. You also have the Deputy Foreign Minister on Indian soil going on to deliver this message and remind the leadership in both the countries that India and Iran have civilizational ties. We've already seen what Iran means to the Shia population, and more importantly, what the Ayatollah as a religious godfather meant for the Shia population across the world, not just in India. And that is why we've seen the kind of protests brew from Leh all the way to Lucknow. But more importantly, the political messaging over here is very significant. Kritzween, you rightly highlighted that the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran has already had a word with External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar. Dr. Jaishankar is also very much in Raisina at the moment. He's also delivering a word. So India's stance has always been very clear. They have always urged for dialogue and diplomacy to prevail whenever there is a conflict situation, because remember, it's not just one country, Iran, Israel or the United States, bearing the brunt of this. It is the overall global economy, thanks to the amount of oil, Brent crude, LNG, all of these supplies that pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Let me quickly take that forward with Sanjay Suri, who continues to stay with us, as does Ambassador Dogra. Sanjay, how do you think the kind of messaging that's coming out of India will be taken in Israel?
Well, I would like very much to hear from my friend Rajiv, who is here, whose reasoning is sound as ever. But it would appear that India is playing its diplomatic cards carefully and playing them quite well. We've seen the kind of bond that has surfaced between India and Israel through the course of Prime Minister's visit to Israel just in recent days. And now we have the Foreign Secretary signing that condolence book. We have the meeting between two ministers from India and Iran. Clearly, India will take the path of diplomacy and dialogue, and that has been a long-standing policy of India. But that's not just a matter of principle and noble aim to be achieved. It's just also a smart diplomatic move. You do need to play your cards very, very carefully. And because there are good relations with Israel, you cannot burn your boats with Iran. And India certainly is keeping that relationship very much on board.
Okay, thank you for that, Sanjay. Going across to Ambassador Dogra for a quick comment. Ambassador, it's very interesting you said that, there are forces, perhaps hidden forces in Middle East, parts of Middle East and also Israel that continue to give real-time feedback to Iran, and that's what explains the kind of strikes that they're being able to carry out in both of these regions. What do you think, though, as for Israel, the end game at the moment is looking like? There are a lot of comments that have come in from the American leadership so far, but is Israel limited to a supportive role, or there is a larger objective that they're also looking at meeting?
Well, good to see Sanjay, and stay safe. You've been reporting very well, but take care of yourself. As far as the entire situation is concerned, let me first start with the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister.
Okay.
I think the word that has come from MEA is a brief meeting. So I think we should take note of the significance of the word brief. Secondly, this was a pre-arranged schedule to attend, as Akanksha said very rightly, the Observer Research Foundation's meeting, which was planned well in advance. But there is a contrast between what the Deputy Foreign Minister said and what the Ambassador of Iran said before FS, Foreign Secretary, went to sign the condolence book. He was not very, very friendly in his remarks, the Iranian ambassador. In contrast, the Deputy Foreign Minister has been quite warm, probably to take care of the remarks made earlier. But coming back to your question about Israel, America, and so on, in fact, Israel instigated Trump. And having instigated Trump, I think Israel is not going to step back, because it's not Israel and Israel's people who are determining the course of Israel's policy, but a single man called Netanyahu, who is acting against the better judgment of the people and some of the leadership, including
Ambassador Dogra, I am so sorry to interrupt you there. We are getting in breaking inputs. In fact, as we speak, we'll have to quickly go across to Akash for that. In inputs shared by our investigations editor Manoj Gupta, what we are being told is that there has been an airstrike near the Pakistan embassy in Tehran. This, remember, could spell more trouble and escalation for Pakistan, as well as it now gets inevitably involved in this conflict that, as we all know, is widening by the day. There's also an advisory which has been issued. Will Iran even be in a situation to, in fact, protect the Pakistani expatriates? And of course, the officials in the embassy details are awaited. But Akash brings us more.
So, Kanksha, this is CNN News 18 exclusive, where Manoj Gupta, our investigation editor, is reporting that how Israeli and American strikes are somewhere targeting the area that is very close to Pakistani embassy in Tehran. This is very close, in fact, to the Iranian military headquarters in the city. We have been given to understand that intense bombing has happened in that particular area, which is somewhere, which has definitely impacted, the people in the close vicinity. And we are learning that 50, in fact, staff, Pakistani diplomats, in fact, the officials are very much there, including the ambassador. They are, in fact, terrified by the attack. And Manoj Gupta is bringing these exclusive details to us, where we are learning about this sort of attack that is happening very close, in fact, to the embassy there in Tehran. Akanksha.
All right, we're getting in some more breaking inputs, for which, in fact, let's quickly go across to Griha. Remember, there are Kurd factions also which are currently being propped up by the CIA, was information that we had received earlier yesterday, and perhaps Griha can shed more light.
Yeah, absolutely, Akanksha. I was just looking at the map before. Let's, in fact, tell you about the escalation. What is happening is that the U.S. and Israelis want boots on the ground, and they are mobilizing the Kurds. And this becomes interesting if at all there is going to be a crossing of border, particularly from the western side of Iran. This gets tricky, and there will be an escalation, an on-ground escalation that one is looking at. And that's why there's a constant reference of the Kurdish factor getting involved in the war. If we take a closer look at this map that we have, these are the areas that are marked out, and this is where Kurdistan region and Iran really, comes in. If we take a look at Iraq here, and particularly the southern Kurdistan region, this is from where the incursion seems to be happening, and this is what Iran is looking at. Kermanshah and also the Tabriz area and the Mahabad area, which has been fortified, and there are sanctions that are being received by Iran, by the Kurd groups, by Iran for that matter. This kind of escalation is something which will be rather significant, Akanksha, because remember, US is known to mobilize Kurds. It has happened in the past. But what is interesting is that they have never really stood by the Kurd groups, and that's why we will see what
into a short break right now. But as we all know, there are parallel developments happening. Hezbollah over there joining that front with Iran, but you have the Kurds now being propped up by the CIA and, of course, Israel as well. We're slipping into a quick break. Stay tuned for all the live and rolling updates.
Well, here goes the siren again. A ballistic missile detected on its way here. Probably a good time to step into a shelter.
अभी जो यहाँ पे सायरन बजी है, उसके बाद धमाके जोरदार हुए, या तो इंटरसेप्ट किया गया मिसाइल्स को जो लगातार ईरान की तरफ से अटैक किया जा रहा है।
airstrikes going on there, and also huge damage being caused, and of course many people also having been harmed.
I would request my colleague Akash Sharma to also join me here in the studio so that we can take this forward and understand exactly what are we looking at, because it's a choke point. It is rather vital. We are talking about the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the global oil really passes the Strait of Hormuz. And if you can take a look at the traffic here, we have just placed it here on the map. This is the Strait of Hormuz. We've just expanded it for our viewers to see exactly what are we talking about as far as this Gulf of Oman is concerned. It divides Iran and Oman. And I request Akash also to come join me here. This is the traffic that we are looking at here, Akash. All of these red dots, of course, talk about the stranded ships. If you could just help us explain to our viewers, how badly is this going to be impacting India, A, and the other routes that we continue to talk about, whether it is, of course, the Cape of Good Hope for that matter, or the other route which has the Houthis also, really eyeing vessels, particularly after this escalation by the U.S. and Israel on Iran.
Right. Griha, you see a number of aspects that I'll talk about. First of all, these images, this is a playback from marine traffic where you are seeing these visuals of these vessels. These are oil tankers or the sort of vessels, that we have in this particular area. This is Persian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, and in fact, this Strait of Hormuz. This is the particular area that is the contested area as of now. While Iran is claiming that they have not restricted any sort of traffic, they are of course blaming it on US. But then on the other side, we have the reality where we know, in fact, agencies like IFC, IOR are telling us that how more than 10 ships have been targeted in the last 3 to 4 days. And this is particular area where we have, in fact, this is from 2nd March, Griha, this particular playback. But then we have the recent imageries as well. And these recent imageries are somewhere suggesting that how more than 37 Indian ships, till yesterday, was stranded there. The north part of it for outward traffic, and the south part of this particular area is for inward traffic. And we say that around 40% of the Indian crude comes from this particular route. So we are of course going to be impacted, and that is the reason why when it is about the 30 days relaxation or the sort of tweet that is coming. And this is in fact from the 4th March, the recent images from the same area where we have these vessels that are basically not docking, but we can see in fact the group of these vessels that have got oil tankers, and in fact the other variety of vessels that are very much there.
Akash, why we are putting out these images and we are constantly looking at it on a day-wise basis. So help us for our viewers to understand how bad this has become after this choke point has been practically blocked. Of course, the blockage announcement really cannot wholly come in from Tehran because there are underwriters who look at these vessels, insurance is involved, and once a conflict zone really is something that we're talking about, the insurance also fall back. Now that the US is talking about insuring the vessels, first it spoke about really giving an access, carrying the US Navy really coming in and escorting these vessels. How much of practicality do you think and purpose do you see in that announcement, considering that happened way back during the Iraq-Iran war, the 8-year war? So about that as well. And now with the DSC announcement, the fact that it will be coming in from the taxpayers' money, do you think US is all over the place with what's doing about this choke point?
Look, Griha, there can be one logical argument that there should be some sort of understanding, at least for this particular region, as this is going to impact, the other nations as well. Countries like India, that has nothing to do with this particular war. But this particular, blockage will somewhere impact not just India, but other countries too. And that's the reason why there's a logical argument. But then Iran or US would say that why would we be coming on a conclusion on something that can be a pressure point for one country? And this is the reason why we are seeing this area contested by Iran as of now. But yes, a clarity came in the morning today that how they are saying that we have not blocked the particular region, but it is the United States, that is somewhere painting a picture that how we are not allowing these vessels. On the other hand, we know that how only countries like China were initially allowed to transit from this particular region. This is an area where we should have a freedom of navigation for each and every vessel that is coming from either of the...
Welcome back. Let's now focus on the impact of this conflict. India's access to critical energy supplies has received a temporary lift after the United States approved a narrowly defined 30-day waiver allowing Indian refiners to purchase Russian oil already stranded at sea. While the government positions the waiver as a pragmatic response to regional energy disruptions, the move has, of course, triggered sharp political debate at home. This with opposition leaders now questioning why Washington is even in a position to permit India's purchases and demand clarity on what leverage the US holds over New Delhi. They argue the centre must explain its own stance and assert stronger independence in its foreign policy decision-making. India is speaking, in fact, to US for more support to secure its own marine insurance cover for vessels transporting oil from the Middle East. The government's way to ensure continuity of its own energy supplies amid the disruptions in the Strait. Let's quickly go across to some breaking inputs that Prithvi's bringing for us.
Well, let's talk about what this journey has looked like in the last 1 year alone. Let's talk about India's Russian oil purchases, because this story has seen a lot of ups and downs, particularly in relation to the intervention that's coming from the United States. So going all the way back to January 2025, we were looking at 1.67 million barrels per day. That was the per day procurement back in January 2025. Cut to September 2025, when it stood at 1.61 million barrels per day. So from 1.67 in Jan to 1.61 million barrels per day. And then you have in December 2025. Remember, between September and December is when the United States of America started putting a lot of pressure on India, especially in terms of how the allegations were, and I quote, that India is funding the war in Ukraine. And constant pressure that was coming in from the United States possibly explains this number, from 1.61 million barrels per day in September 2025 to 1.25 million barrels per day in December 2025 to finally 1.1 million barrels per day in Jan 2026. This is where conversations around a trade agreement began. They started shaping up. We did start hearing of formal announcements as well. And the impression which was sent out by the United States back in January and towards the beginning of February was that India has agreed to lower its oil imports from Russia, which is where the story stood. But now you have a concession, a 30-day waiver that the United States has, quote-unquote, allowed, which has also sparked a lot of politics here in India, with Congress coming out with sharp reactions as well. Anand is with us in the studio. Anand, how do you look at this? Many would say this is the United States being hypocritical about what it asked India to do vis-a-vis what it's allowing India to do. But the term allow has irked many in the Congress.
Well, it has, and but the point is that it was one of the conditions. Trump can say whatever he's going to say. It's the trade secretaries who will talk, and concession will have to be made because there are so many million barrels of oil that we need to consume. We have got our 25 to 30 day, but more importantly, we've got 1.4 billion people and a population which has got a huge amount of an energy requirement. Now, whether the US says allow or disallow or whatever it is, the fact of the matter is one has to understand that we have been continuing to buy oil. We reduce the percentage and our dependence. We'll increase the dependence, and because we will do it. The condition was that we didn't want to face tariffs and additional issues and create problems for our own exporters and for our own constituency. The politics aside, there is a very clever game the Americans are also playing. For right now, the priority for them is to win this war in the Gulf. But it also allows Putin some leeway and adds to his cash flows, while it crunches the energy requirements of the Europeans, because Putin may repurpose the supplies of LNG and LPG also along with oil towards China and India, and that will add to his funds. But the Europeans will now find a crunch because they will have to back Trump. So far they have deterred. They will have to back Trump because they are backing Ukraine, and then suddenly there is a dynamic that will be created in the Russia-Ukraine war also, which may give Trump a certain amount of leeway. So although a lot of what Trump says and how the Americans speak and whatever their language is may be, let's say, unparliamentary or perhaps bordering on crazy or non-political, absolutely.
It's Donald Trump who has the explaining to do here, not really India, because India's always focused on its own energy requirements, and it's also turning to other nations for other energy.
Absolutely, and we will. There is Venezuelan oil to buy, there is Russian oil to buy. We can source our oil from other people, and we have the right to do that. What language the Americans use, I don't think if the politics is going to be played around that, then that's a different point. But where are those people who are trying to blame India and the Indian Navy when we realize the details have come out that for 40 hours it was the Sri Lankan Navy that kept that frigate waiting? So they're silenced today, so they need another ball to score on and a goalpost. So the goalpost has shifted to this one.
Besides, they were very concerned about reduced oil imports. So, I mean, they should be happy at the end of the day that there is a way out here.
See, I'll tell you what, the opposition's job is to keep the government on the, and they are the conscience keepers, and they are the ones, their job is to keep asking the government the questions and keep them on the right ball. And I think they are doing that. So if we look beyond the politics, it is good that the opposition is asking these questions because the government will be extra careful. So somewhere they are also doing their job. The politics aside, we've got to focus on whether or not our ships will now pass through the Strait of Hormuz based on what the Iranians have said. And if that means, then we don't need to buy so much of oil from the Russians if the Iranians are saying that oil tankers towards India will go on. Our problem is that Qatar has stopped LNG production. Our problem is that we can't trust the Iranians because they struck the Aramco factory and also the oil refinery owned by Oman, although they say that they are only targeting ships or assets that belong to U.S. Israel or any of those entities. So that's what, or Europe. That's what they are trying to say. But can we trust that wholly? That's where it is. The Prime Minister is not getting into the politics. His priority is what is going to happen to you and me and 1.4 billion people. The same opposition, you and me, don't want that 94 rupees, 90 paisa, the cost that we are paying for a litre of petrol in Noida, to go up to 104 rupees. Yeah. We are going to be up at arms on that. That's priority.
There's limited options for everyone. I think everyone's exercising it fully, including Iran, when they're targeting oil facilities. And that's going to continue for a while. But politics is also unfolding slowly. So we need to talk about what's happening here in India and the manner in which Congress is upping the ante against the central government. Now, we have seen the Congress raise multiple questions. We have Pallavi with us in the newsroom. Pallavi, give us a sense of how do you see this playing out? The Bharatiya Janata Party has also quickly come out with a quick rebuttal. They're saying, what do you have to say now to the attack on reduced oil imports? As long as we're able to achieve our target, as long as we're safe and sound, we should not be worried. Yeah, but the Congress has different concerns.
Yeah, but the Congress's concern is, anger is about the fact that the word allow is being used because allow gives you a position of authority to dictate terms. So, there is going to be a Congress party meeting later this evening, Christine, and that is when they're going to formulate their parliament strategy from Monday. But it's very clear that they are not going to keep it easy for the government. They're going to make life hell for the government. They're going to talk about the fact that, look, we've been consistently making the point that this government is compromised. This buckles under pressure from Donald Trump, and Trump's latest comments on Russian oil is just going to give them more ammunition. So Monday onwards, we are told that Rahul Gandhi is going to take the lead. He's going to corner the government and the Prime Minister, and they won't let the Prime Minister speak because this is going to be a budget session. The budget has to be cleared. So they won't let the PM speak till he clarifies on this issue about America dictating.
It's almost, the attack is almost in continuation with the trade conversations that was struck by the United States. Thank you so much, Pallavi. We'll keep coming back to you. For now, this is what's happening in India. Congress, back-to-back reactions coming in. How this plays out overall is, of course, India's biggest concern at the moment. And what it is purely focused on is looking at its own energy requirements. And it's actually really acting on it as we speak as well. Akanksha, back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Krithvi. Now, remember, CNN News 18 is the only Indian English news channel which is reporting from ground zero in Israel. And as the Iran-Israel conflict stretches into day 7, with fresh Israeli strikes hitting Tehran and Iran launching missiles and drones across Gulf nations, the region remains Only one Indian network operates 2 channels on the front lines. This is with CNN News 18, your channel, and its reporters bringing you a report. We will be bringing you that report as well. But CNN's Matthew Chance was forced to escape a southern Beirut neighborhood after the Israeli military warned of an imminent airstrike while he was reporting there minutes after joining Hezbollah for a tour of its stronghold amid heavy evacuation warnings. Have a quick look at this ground report.
They said there's been a warning from the Israelis that there could be a strike coming in. So we're going to get out of here, Alex.
Where they are going?
I don't know, but we need to get out. Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
No, but we've just been trying to film at this location here in Dahir, and we've been told to move away quickly now.
Yeah.
People were showing us their phones saying, look, there's a warning coming in. Go around this guy. We've come into what is the most dangerous part of the Lebanese capital, which is a very important stronghold of Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militia group. It's the place where Israel has been focusing, and you can hear the gunshots outside there, that Israel has been focusing its activity, its intensive campaign of airstrikes against the Hezbollah group. That's often, we're told, a warning to local residents who don't have cell phones or don't have that communication to tell them there may be an Israeli strike incoming. So we're going to get out of here.
Another interesting report that's been filed by CNN's Frederick. He reports en route to Tehran. He shows us how security has tightened with more checkpoints, heavily armed personnel on the roads amid the escalating war. Daily life otherwise appears calm is what he says and tells us through this report. Take a look.
Fairly good progress towards Tehran. It is a very, very long drive, though. Some things that we are seeing, we already went past one place where apparently there had just been an airstrike. There was thick black smoke billowing over one place, so it seemed like a fairly fresh airstrike. Also some destroyed buildings that we saw from our vantage point as we were driving past. The other thing that I would also say is that there are definitely more checkpoints than usual. We did see checkpoints with fairly heavily armed security personnel. Other than that, though, it seems as though things are going on, and we certainly don't see any sign of order collapsing here. Taking a quick break for a coffee along the way. We've been driving for several hours. There's a couple of things that we've noticed. Number one is that, first of all the shops are open. All the shops are really well stocked, even with fresh things like, for instance, fruits and vegetables. Coffee obviously also available as well. And then also the gas stations. There's no long lines as gas stations. Fuel seems readily available, and you just don't see any sort of degree of panic anywhere.
ईरान के मिसाइल से क्या तबाही हुई है टेल अवीव और इसराइल के बाकी हिस्सों में लगातार न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पहुंच रही है उन जगहों पर जो है रियल ग्राउंड ज़ीरो इस वार जोन का। मैं इस वक्त वार जोन में हूं और ये देखिए, ये इस वक्त टेल अवीव में तबाही हुई है। मैं अंदर जाने की कोशिश करूंगा इस बिल्डिंग में और दिखाऊंगा क्या तबाही इस बिल्डिंग के अंदर हुई है। और ये मैं इस वक्त एक बिल्डिंग के अंदर हूं, हालांकि बाहर से सायरन बजी है तो यहाँ पे लोग जो हैं अभी शेल्टर की तरफ जाएंगे। तो सायरन बज गई है। मैं हालांकि उस जगह पे हूं जहां पहले ही मिसाइल अटैक हुआ है। सुन सकते हैं आप। और लोग शेल्टर में जा रहे हैं। मैं भी कोशिश करूंगा शेल्टर की तरफ जाने की, ताकि मैं आपको दिखा सकूं कि किस तरीके से लोग यहाँ पे फौरन सायरन के बाद शेल्टर में जाते हैं ताकि वो अपनी जान बचा सकें। देखिए, सन्नाटा छा गया है और लोग भाग रहे हैं। ये देख सकते हैं आप, लोग शेल्टर की तरफ जा रहे हैं जो यहाँ पे है। ये लेन्स और बाई लेन्स का हाल है इस वक्त। इसराइल में कहीं पे शायद अटैक होने वाला है और मैं कोशिश करूंगा अंदर जाने की। हालांकि यहाँ पे इर्द गिर्द आप देख सकते हैं पहले ही एक अटैक हुआ है। मैं उसी स्पॉट पे हूँ जहाँ पे इसराइल की तरफ से मिसाइल अटैक किया गया। गाड़ियों की हालत देखिए आप। लेकिन मैं आपको दिखाऊंगा कि किस तरीके से यहाँ पे बॉम्ब शेल्टर्स जो हैं वहाँ पे लोग जाते हैं। अभी देख पा रहा हूं मैं ये अंडरग्राउंड जिसे हम बंकर कहते हैं या अंडरग्राउंड बेसमेंट में जो शेल्टर होता है उस शेल्टर में मैं जाने की कोशिश करूंगा। अभी यहाँ पर तो ये आप देख सकते हैं कि मैं इस वक्त शेल्टर में आया हूँ और यहाँ पे ये अंडरग्राउंड शेल्टर है क्योंकि बाहर से सायरन्स बज गई हैं। उसका मतलब है कि ईरान की तरफ से एक मिसाइल अटैक जो है लॉन्च किया गया। ये अंडरग्राउंड बेसमेंट बहुत स्ट्रांग होता है तो इसके अंदर लोग जाते हैं जब भी सायरन होती है। यही वजह है कि इसराइल में ज़्यादा जानी नुकसान नहीं होता है। और ये डोर दिखाने की मैं कोशिश करूँगा। बहुत मजबूत ये दरवाज़ा होता है और इर्द गिर्द ये पूरा कंक्रीट होता है, लेकिन उसके बावजूद भी खतरा रहता है। और फ़ौरन लोग आते हैं जो ही सायरन बजती है, जो होम फ्रंट कमांड है उनकी तरफ से यहाँ पे सायरन होती है और फ़ौरन लोग जो हैं इस अंडरग्राउंड बंकर या इस अंडरग्राउंड बॉम्ब शेल्टर जिसे ये कहते हैं यहाँ पे, तो इस वक्त आप देख सकते हैं कि हम बॉम्ब शेल्टर के अंदर है। अभी अभी सायरन बजी है और लोग इस बेसमेंट में चले गए। मैं भी इस वक्त बेसमेंट में हूँ क्योंकि जब सायरन बजती है होम फ्रंट कमांड की तरफ से तो फ़ौरन लोग भाग जाते हैं, शेल्टर लेते हैं किसी जगह अंडरग्राउंड बंकर में। तो मैं भी यहाँ पे हूँ और मैं दिखाने की कोशिश करूँगा। ये बहुत ही स्ट्रॉन्ग डोर होता है, इसको बंद किया जाता है। अगर बाहर से कोई मिसाइल अटैक होता भी है तो उसका असर बहुत कम यहाँ तक पहुँच सकता है या ना भी पहुँच सकता है।
I would request my colleague Akash Sharma to also join me here in the studio so that we can take this forward and understand exactly what are we looking at, because it's a choke point. It is rather vital. We are talking about the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the global oil really passes the Strait of Hormuz. And if you can take a look at the traffic here, we have just placed it here on the map. This is the Strait of Hormuz. We've just expanded it for our viewers to see exactly what are we talking about as far as this Gulf of Oman is concerned. It divides Iran and Oman. And I request Akash also to come join me here. This is the traffic that we are looking at here, Akash. All of these red dots, of course, talk about the stranded ships. If you could just help us explain to our viewers, how badly is this going to be impacting India, A, and the other routes that we continue to talk about, whether it is, of course, the Cape of Good Hope for that matter, or the other route which has the Houthis also, really eyeing vessels, particularly after this escalation by the U.S. and Israel on Iran.
Right. Griha, you see a number of aspects that I'll talk about. First of all, these images, this is a playback from marine traffic where you are seeing these visuals of these vessels. These are oil tankers or the sort of vessels, that we have in this particular area. This is Persian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, and in fact, this Strait of Hormuz. This is the particular area that is the contested area as of now. While Iran is claiming that they have not restricted any sort of traffic, they are of course blaming it on US. But then on the other side, we have the reality where we know, in fact, agencies like IFC, IOR are telling us that how more than 10 ships have been targeted in the last 3 to 4 days. And this is particular area where we have, in fact, this is from 2nd March, Griha, this particular playback. But then we have the recent imageries as well. And these recent imageries are somewhere suggesting that how more than 37 Indian ships, till yesterday, were stranded there. The north part of it for outward traffic, and the south part of this particular area is for inward traffic. And we say that around 40% of the Indian crude comes from this particular route. So we are of course going to be impacted, and that is the reason why when it is about the 30 days relaxation or the sort of tweet that is coming. And this is in fact from the 4th March, the recent images from the same area where we have these vessels, that are basically not docking, but we can see, in fact, the group of these vessels that have got oil tankers, and in fact, the other variety of vessels that are very much there.
Akash, why we are putting out these images and we are constantly looking at it on a day-wise basis. So help us for our viewers to understand how bad this has become after this choke point has been practically blocked. Of course, the blockage announcement really cannot wholly come in from Tehran because there are underwriters who look at these vessels, insurance is involved, and once a conflict zone really is something that we're talking about, the insurance also fall back. Now that the US is talking about insuring the vessels, first it spoke about really giving an access, carrying the US Navy really coming in and escorting these vessels. How much of practicality do you think and purpose do you see in that announcement, considering that happened way back during the Iraq-Iran war, the 8-year war? So about that as well, and now with the DSC announcement, the fact that it will be coming in from the taxpayers' money, do you think US is all over the place with what's doing about this choke point?
Look, Griha, there can be one logical argument that there should be some sort of understanding, at least for this particular region, as this is going to impact, the other nations as well. Countries like India, that has nothing to do with this particular war. But this particular, blockage will somewhere impact not just India, but other countries too. And that's the reason why there's a logical argument. But then
good afternoon. Hello and welcome to Inside the Bunker with the one and only Tom Cooper. And people in Austria are sitting and watching Indian TV just thanks to him and our coverage here at CNN News 18. So good for that. But viewers, the war of attrition is going on. It's day 7 of the Gulf War. But there are a few sighs of relief at different corners because of the proclamations made both by the American side and also the Iranian side. We'll talk about that and more, and what are the dynamics. Which way is this war now going to move into day 7 and day 8? We'll ask Tom Cooper, and we'll also dive deep into the developments after a quick check of the headlines. As oil prices spike sharply, big energy boost for Bharat. United States issues a 30-day waiver allowing Bharat to continue purchasing Russian oil. U.S. strikes intensify against the Iranian Navy, sinking 30 ships and hitting a drone ship. Iranian ballistic missile attacks drop 90%, while drone attacks fall 83%. Iran hits Bahrain with a missile striking a state-run oil refinery alongside attacks on a hotel and residential buildings. Fires are extinguished, the refinery continues operating, and no casualties are reported. Amid row over the Iran's Dana sinking in the Indian Ocean, Raksha Mantri issues a statement, says oceans are again the center of global power dynamics and it is Bharat's responsibility to provide leadership with confidence, capability and a clear vision. The Indian Navy says it promptly launched search and rescue, deploying a P-80I Maritime patrol aircraft and diverting ships to assist Sri Lanka in rescuing crew of the Iranian warship Iran's Dana. US President Donald Trump says he must be involved in choosing Iran's next leader, calling Mustafa Khamenei unacceptable and urging selection of a leader who brings peace. Being a leader who brings peace, what does that mean? And now Trump says he needs to have a say in the selection of the clerical head of the entire Shia community and especially in Iran. Now on day 7 of the conflict, intense military exchanges continue between Iran and the US-Israel coalition. With escalating regional impacts, Iran is launching fresh waves of missile and drone strikes in Israeli territory and of course at the US bases in Gulf states, triggering alerts and interceptions in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Qatar. Israeli forces are responding with air operations, including strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. In the Gulf, Iran's Revolutionary Guards, IRGC, reportedly struck a U.S. oil tanker in the northern Gulf, causing fire damage. Gulf states continue to tighten air defenses and scanning routines amid ongoing threats. Pentagon leadership is asserting U.S.-Israeli forces are gaining control of Iran's air defenses and missile networks, although Iran persists in lower volume yet sustained strikes across multiple countries. Tom Cooper here had said they will start going guerrilla. They may not have to fire 100 missiles a day. Even if they fire one missile every hour and they are able to hit home or hit their targets, they will continue to brew this conflict and this war. Now let's take a look at the top 5 things to watch out for as per Tom Cooper over the next 1 or 2 days. One is something which he's been constantly talking about. That is the number of missiles and UAVs launched by Iran. We'll deep dive into that in a bit. The other one, point number 2, and we'll cover this over the course of the next hour. What areas has Iran targeted so far? Is there a shift in where it is targeting and what it is targeting in the U.S.-Israeli coalition? The world reacting to Khamenei's death, and especially certain countries where the Shia population, the Muslim population is higher in parts of Central Eastern Europe. We'll have to see what the reaction there is too. The Kurdish influence in Iraq and Iran. They are a splintered lot, the Kurds, but are they organizing and are they entering and are they getting to play the role of a proxy on behalf of the U.S.-Israeli grouping? We'll have to see. Iran's duplicity with respect to ships. They say they're targeting only U.S. and European and Israeli ships, but their missiles are landing all over the place in the Gulf. So we'll talk about all of that. First up, let's call the first one again. Number of missiles that Iran is dropping. We've got some fresh images also. But Tom, first, I'm going to ask you this. There is a drop. In the headlines, we said 83% drop in the number of UAVs, 90% drop in their ballistics missiles being launched. Does that signal the Iranians are taking a break, they're recalibrating, or have significant number of their launchers been decimated? And why is this important?
It is important because it is showing how much is Iran capable or not to threaten whatever kind of targets they're targeting. Point is, I do not think they are taking a break, and I'm not convinced, I haven't seen any kind of visual evidence that there were some kind of large numbers of strikes on their launchers. So the question is that of how much are they capable of moving their launchers out of underground facilities and in order to deploy missiles. And I think the air campaign is so far successful in regard to suppressing precisely this capability. Whether it is capable of actually destroying the launchers is a different question.
Okay, let's look at some of the pictures, and I'm going to ask you to join me here on the wall.
Course.
And we'll call up some of these pictures. The first one is the Muwafaq Salti Air Base. This is in Jordan. So they've struck this Jordan air base. We'll call up the pictures here on the wall. There you go. Now, this is the Salti Air Base in Jordan. Again, a U.S. air base. What do you make of the pictures? Penetrating bombs, or is it a big missile attack to just destroy their communication center? How would you see this?
I would go for the later, which means either missiles or UAVs that have hit one of the sectors, apparently U.S. command and control sectors of the base. Which is ironic because Muwafaq Salti was a Jordanian hunter pilot killed by Israelis in 1966. So, but nowadays this is the biggest air base used by the U.S. Air Force in the Middle East, precisely for strikes on Iran, for example.
Okay. The other picture that we have is the Dahal in Qatar. Okay. Now, again, this is Dahal in Qatar.
This is the very long-range early warning radar, surveillance radar. However you want it. Extremely advanced, extremely expensive. Has a range, can see up to Russia, for example, down to Kenya. And apparently there are indications that it was hit by at least one UAV on this side. So this is a major loss for both USA and for Qatar, if true. Whether it was disabled, that is not really possible to gauge from this photograph.
But let me ask you, why Qatar? And Qatar is one of the first, Gulf nations to immediately shut down facility and production. What's the backstory here with Qatar?
Well, Qatar and Iran were on relatively good relations from that point of view. But on the other hand, Qatar is housing U.S. military facilities, U.S. and allied military facilities. The intelligence collected, for example, by this radar is shared, almost certainly shared, via USA with Israel. That is why.
That's why they are targeting this. And Qatar in somewhere a quasi-solidarity with Iran, shutting down its LNG units and shutting down all production, or just to safeguard its plants and refineries from large-scale damage?
To safeguard. The biggest gas field on the world is shared between Qatar and Iran. And they have said, okay, before the Iranians come to the idea to strike it, let's shoot it down. They are going to leave us alone.
Yeah, so that's the reason why, but that has also caused a certain level of pangs in the hearts of those who are sourcing this LNG.
Of course.
So the story is Iran and Qatar share the biggest gas field, and the Qataris have said before they bomb that, and gas, you know, is far more volatile than liquid oil, which will burn at one place, but gas can actually blow up the whole refinery and the whole pipeline.
Exactly.
It's highly flammable. And explosive.
Extremely inflammable, and it would cause massive damage if some kind of combat damage under apostrophe is caused to it.
Correct.
We see it also on example of this Russian liquid gas carrier that was hit by unknown UAVs in Mediterranean a few days ago. The ship was almost blown out of the water.
Right. Let's have a look at the THAAD battery near Al Sadr in UAE. Now, again, the THAAD battery, the THAAD systems are very critical to the air defense systems. Why? Before and after, we've got the pictures.
The THAAD is the primary anti-ballistic missile system of the U.S. Army. And it depends on deployment of truck-towed huge radars. And it appears that not only this one, but also two other THAAD radars deployed by U.S. forces in the Emirates has been hit. So 3 such radars knocked out. Each costs hundreds of millions, and of course are crucial importance for the operationality of anti-ballistic missile defenses in the country.
Okay, let me ask you, if they are so good, how are the Iranians able to breach?
UAVs.
UAVs.
This radar is specialized in countering ballistic missiles. It means it looks in one direction, in specific direction, usually down the threat axis, so-called threat axis. This is the most likely direction for which a threat is coming in. If you attack it with UAV, which is routed around its flank, it cannot detect anything.
Yeah, this is the next one. This is in Al-Ruwais, another THAAD battery system. You said another one in the Emirates. So this is near Al-Ruwais. Again, they've similarly targeted this battery system. Yeah, take it
through. It will be this dot here.
Yeah. This is what's been damaged. That's the dot. That's where the launchers are, or the radar.
This is just the radar. Just the radar.
Just the radar.
And it was supposedly either that or the one up here.
The up one here. This one here.
Up here. And apparently it was hit as well, perhaps even 2 times.
But this is again. Are they using the Shahid 136?
Yeah, or something
it's
similar.
all the Shahid 136.
It must not be the Shahid 136. It could be. There is an entire family of such vehicles in Iran. And there are some of which are jet propelled, not only piston propelled. So they are using whatever they have on hand. And whatever it was, it obviously penetrated multiple layers of air defenses and reached its target.
We also have the Al-Dhafra airbase. That's also been hit in the UAE again. Why is the Al-Dhafra so important? Now look at the damage at the Al-Dhafra here.
Dhafra is important because it's a huge complex. It's a huge airbase housing not only some 6 or 7 squadrons of the United Arab Emirates Air Force, but also U.S. Air Force, French Air Force, British Air Force contingents. So damage in this facility is important in order to hamper its ability to conduct operations against Iran or in defense of United Arab Emirates.
Well, I think we got Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey also with us. General Pandey, are you through with us? Oh, he's not through with us. We'll try and get him on. So these are the pictures. So these are the strikes that Iran is doing. Quickly, do you want to see the number of ballistic missiles, or when they are dropping, is Iran recalibrating, or where is it going to concentrate its attacks now?
Iran is principally targeting the military headquarters in Israel, major bases, air defenses, and similar objects. Or, for example, last night there was a report that Iran attempted to hit the Ben Gurion International Airport. Now, an international airport might appear not dangerous for Iran, but satellite photographs that have surfaced in the social media were indicative of U.S. Air Force deploying up to some 25 tanker aircraft at Ben Gurion Airport. Tanker aircraft are the size of bigger than airliners, and they are enabling the Israeli Air Force to regularly in big numbers reach Western Iran. Therefore, perfectly legitimate target.
Right, so that's why Ben Gurion Airport was part of the target, because they targeted the tankers. So the mid-air refueling is disabled.
To disrupt such operations, and that's the point. Just one such missile fired in direction of Ben Gurion Airport is enough to shut down the facility, to cause postponements in operations of the Israeli Air Force. That is what the Iranians are trying to achieve.
Right. Let's move forward here on Inside the Bunker with Tom Cooper. One of the other aspects, viewers, is Bharat's access to critical energy supplies that received a temporary lift after the United States approved a narrowly defined 30-day waiver allowing Bharatiya refiners to actually purchase Russian oil already stranded in the sea. While the government positions the waiver as a pragmatic response to regional energy disruptions, well, the move has triggered a sharp political debate at home, with opposition leaders questioning why Washington is in a position to quote-unquote permit Bharat's purchases and demanding clarity on what leverage the US actually holds over New Delhi. They argue the centre must explain its stance and assert stronger independence in its foreign policy decision-making, and Bharat is seeking US support to secure marine insurance cover for vessels transporting oil from the Middle East, and government's way to ensure continuity of energy supplies amidst disruptions in the strait. I'm just going to walk out and see if we have our reporters here, and then quickly take a look before we come back to Tom and talk about the politics. Just quickly try and understand with our team here this entire language that's been used. Now that's become a huge matter of politics, Akanksha. Allow and permit. Now these are the jibes that are being traded. What's the reaction, and why would US say allow?
That's an interesting question, because the opposition has exactly asked that question. What gives the United States to, in fact, even decide our own decisions when it comes to energy? But you were also talking about this, that right now we are in the middle of the formal bilateral trade agreement yet to be announced. We've seen the impact that the tariffs have had, not just us. You see the result, in fact, shape up Beijing and Washington relations. They've had the longest protracted trade war. So India doesn't want to jeopardize that. In fact, we are currently in talks with the United States to provide insurance through their multilateral institution, which is the International U.S. Financial Corporation Development Bank, that provides insurance to all the vessels that are carrying crude, and perhaps India can also expect that to be extended. The U.S. President has also offered to provide U.S. Navy to accompany these Brent crude vessels and the carriers as well.
Right. The moment there is U.S. protection, do they then become safe or vulnerable to attacks? Because they've said that anything that has US protection, Europe or Israeli stamp, the Iranians are saying. But the Iranians, can they be trusted? More importantly for India, are they going to buy the oil that the Russians oil tankers are stuck, or are they going to source particularly, or the devil lies in the details?
Of course, the devil lies in the details here. Of course, it also brings into question the semantics, and we were speaking to some of the experts earlier also who were saying that perhaps let's not focus on the semantics so much, and of course the substantive measures that India may take here, and it could be really good for India to facilitate its own oil interests here as well. But if we talk about the narrative war here, it really gets down to dissecting what the United States has said, and that's why there is such uproar back at home as well that we're seeing right now.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Haim. We've got Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey also with us. General Pandey, namaste. This allow, permit, Russian oil, should Bharat look into the semantics, the politics, or should they say the fact that, okay, they can secure the interests of 1.4 billion Bharatiya and we will not have to pay, you and me, we continue to pay the same rate as we are paying today, which is about 94.6 paise per litre of petrol in Noida at least. I can say that because I just tanked up this morning, and it's the same bill as I ran up the last time around. So the rates remain the same. General Pandey.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, firstly, Anand, thank you having me back. And I just want to say hi to Tom. The thing which we discussed, and I think I projected on your channel itself, that there will come a time when America will allow Russian oil to start flowing, right? So that exactly happened. The second part is the politics part.
Right.
Frankly, when you look at the numbers of fluctuating numbers of oil which you have been taking from Russia, it is not significant. You know, in the last 2 years, if you carry out an analysis, you'll find that even though Americans have been saying that you don't take Russian oil, freeze, we have been buying Russian oil either directly or through other systems, because eventually today oil is not matter of only bilaterals. It is also a matter of where the cheapest oil is coming. In case the sanctions are there and the oil of Russia becomes expensive, your oil will start flowing from somewhere else. It may be America, it may be Venezuela, it may be China, and it may be very well from any place. So that is the second part which we need to look at it. The third is the semantics, and the semantics is that today that language is saying that we will allow. I think it's more about a ego boost to the Americans, right? They are pandering to their own leadership, to the MAGA crowd which is there, rather than being realistic. Because today you just can't say that you can't buy Russian oil, you can't buy the Gulf oil, and you can't buy X, Y, Z oil. And hello.
Yeah.
Are you listening?
Yeah, I'm just going. I can hear you, and please carry on. I'm just going to ask for the Strait of Hormuz traffic, the traffic that's happened till the 4th of March, and where all the vessels are. We'll get the Hormuz graphics here on the screen. Yes, General Pandey, complete, and then I'll walk across to Tom. Yes, yeah.
And I think yesterday, me and you and Tom were discussing that how the escorting of ships will be done. This is not the first time. When a conflict area is there, people forget the memory. This thing has been done earlier as well. And I think a very smart thing which the Americans have done, Trump has done. Actually, if you look at it, they have really want to put down the Britishers. And when their insurance companies have started saying that you can't move tankers in Hormuz and we are not going to cover with insurance, they have offered the cheaper insurance policies, and there will be risk. Please understand that it is not, it may not be 100% secure for a tanker to go through Hormuz in a conflict area, but surely if you are able to take a risk of about 90-95%, the Americans can ensure, and not only Americans, I am very sure eventually what will happen is there will be, in case this whole problem persists, there will be a coalition of sorts which will ensure for energy passage. And that is what I think India should look at it, that while the conflict continues to rage, the geopolitical situation is in a disarray, there should be, in the larger interest of the world, there should be a coalition of forces which will ensure safe passage to energy. And energy is required by the world, not only by India, it's required by the Chinese, it's required by the entire world. It is not an issue of Gulf survival, but we all need oil. And then if the world comes together, I think it's all possible.
General Pandey, we've got pictures of a confirmation from the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister, who at the Raisina dialogue said he met Foreign Minister Jaishankar. And those are the pictures. This is the conversation. These are the pictures of the two gentlemen who are having a conversation on the sidelines. I think this is on the sidelines of the Raisina dialogues that these conversations, this meeting has happened. This is Deputy Foreign Minister Khatibzadeh, who has met the EAM Jaishankar here. So these are the pictures that we have. Akanksha now joins us with more on this. Akanksha, very important meeting this one, because this also perhaps allows Bharat to define our position vis-a-vis Iran. And Iran has not been very, very kind to us in terms of the position that they have taken. They've tried to blame even India on the frigate issue. They were trying to pinpoint certain other aspects.
But India, being a country which believes in strategic autonomy, has still respected the civilizational ties, gone ahead in also passing its own condolences, as we saw. Vikram Misri signed that book. But staying on the images that we are getting right now of Dr. Jaishankar in that conversation with the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister, it's significant. Because, Anand, why is this significant? He's not just reminded India and of the civilizational ties. He's also gone on to talk about how they are an institution institutional entity, and that the killing of Khomeini is illegal. It's a separation of powers, and in fact, they've also talked about how it's an institutionalized country, and Khomeini was not a terrorist. So for the world to stand in solidarity with Iran, and again, I think let's focus on the India aspect. It's the faith that they have in Indian diplomacy. Perhaps you can expect the Deputy Foreign Minister urging Dr. Jaishankar to go ahead with global diplomacy, urge the world to take to negotiations.
Yeah, and not just taking to negotiations the safety of Indian citizens in Iran, and also Indian investments and Indian ships. Because we must not forget that there are 33 ships in that region which have got the Indian flag, and more than 1,109 in 33,000 Indian people who are seafarers whose safety is paramount. So that's another aspect that we have to cover. Let's quickly take it forward. Amid escalating Middle East tensions, Indigo Airlines has issued travel advisory, free waivers on cancellations up till the 31st of March. So that is some relief that has come through, even as there are engagements that is happening. I think sometimes some of these aspects take some time, viewers. We like to see things happen very fast because we're so used to instant developments, but Bharat is taking its time. It is talking to the entities one after the other at the right forum and taking it easy. Let's get back to Inside the Bunker with Tom Cooper, and General Pandey is also with us. We've got more pictures. This is footage of the U.S. Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait that is burning following an Iranian strike. Now, this is the attack in Kuwait, and there is also Tehran media that shared this footage of the strike. So we've got pictures. These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. Yeah, it's sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another U.S. airbase
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
No, that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand. When it is targeting these air bases, Iran, we'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the U.S. air bases?
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion, or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling U.S. and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing U.S. military facilities.
If U.S. and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
yes,
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read this?
It's a mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1,000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again, and then let's try and get a deep dive into what is next, which are going to be the, and we're doing it all in real time. I just quickly want to see if we have the mirror here. I just want to dwell on the cost of this war. Viewers. Just quickly want to tell you the cost of this war. It's gone up to 6,122,590,000 and counting, 600,000 and counting. This is in 6 days, 2 hours, 56 minutes and 39.40 seconds. Per second, the cost is only going up to $11,574 per hour. The cost is again $41 million and upwards. And per day, you know the cost is going up to $1 billion per day. This cost on the war on Iran, that's what it's costing us. And these costs are only going to go up. When we come back, what's the recalibration? Which are the zones? And is there an effort to try and break Iran into multiple pieces? And will we have sectarian violence coming in very, very soon? The Kurds, the Azeris, and of course the Baloch on the other side. And there is a solid Sunni population near Sistan and Balochistan. All of those, will they start getting activated on ground? With Tom Cooper when we come back after a short break.
Well, here goes the siren again. A ballistic missile detected on its way here. Probably a good time to step into a shelter.
अभी जो यहाँ पे सायरन बजी है उसके बाद धमाके जोरदार हुए या तो इंटरसेप्ट किया गया मिसाइल्स को जो लगातार ईरान की तरफ से अटैक किया जा रहा है
Airstrikes going on there and also huge damage being caused and of course many people also having been harmed.
I would request my colleague Akash Sharma to also join me here in the studio so that we can take this forward and understand exactly what are we looking at, because it's a choke point. It is rather vital. We are talking about the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the global oil really passes the Strait of Hormuz. And if you can take a look at the traffic here, we have just placed it here on the map. This is the Strait of Hormuz. We've just expanded it for our viewers to see exactly what are we talking about as far as this Gulf of Oman is concerned. It divides Iran and Oman. And I request Akash also to come join me here. This is the traffic that we are looking at here, Akash. All of these red dots, of course, talk about the stranded ships. If you could just help us explain to our viewers, how badly is this going to be impacting India, A, and the other routes that we continue to talk about, whether it is, of course, the Cape of Good Hope for that matter, or the other route which has the Houthis also, you know, really eyeing vessels, particularly after this escalation by the U.S. and Israel on Iran.
Right. Griha, you see a number of aspects that I'll talk about. First of all, these images, this is a playback from marine traffic where you are seeing these visuals of these vessels. These are oil tankers or the sort of vessels, you know, that we have in this particular area. This is Persian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, and in fact, this Strait of Hormuz. This is the particular area that is the contested area as of now. While Iran is claiming that they have not restricted any sort of traffic, they are of course blaming it on US. But then on the other side, we have the reality where we know, in fact, agencies like IFC, IOR are telling us that how more than 10 ships have been targeted in the last 3 to 4 days. And this is particular area where we have, in fact, this is from 2nd March, Griha, you know, this particular playback. But then we have the recent imageries as well. And these recent imageries are somewhere suggesting that how more than 37 Indian ships, you know, till yesterday was stranded there. The north part of it for outward traffic, and the south part of this particular area is for inward traffic. And you know, we say that around 40% of the Indian crude comes from this particular route. So we are of course going to be impacted, and that is the reason why when it is about the 30 days relaxation or the sort of you know, tweet that is coming. And this is in fact from the 4th March, the recent images from the same area where we have these vessels, that are basically not docking, but we can see, in fact, the group of these vessels that have got oil tankers, and in fact, the other variety of vessels that are very much there, Griha.
Akash, why we are putting out these images and we are constantly looking at it on a day-wise basis. So help us for our viewers to understand how bad this has become after this choke point has been practically blocked. Of course, the blockage announcement really cannot wholly come in from Tehran because there are underwriters who look at these vessels, insurance is involved, and once a conflict zone really is something that we're talking about, the insurance also fall back. Now that the US is talking about insuring the vessels, first it spoke about really giving an access, carrying the US Navy really coming in and escorting these vessels. How much of practicality do you think and purpose do you see in that announcement, considering that happened way back during the
Back live, and let's get a quick check of some of the top lines as we are back here on Inside the Bunker. Quick check, viewers. Oil prices spiked sharply. Big energy boost for Bharat. United States issue 30-day waiver allowing Bharat to continue purchasing Russian oil. U.S. strikes intensify against the Iranian Navy, sinking 30 ships and hitting a drone ship. Iranian ballistic missiles attacks drop 90%, while drone attacks fall 83%. Iran hits Bahrain with a missile striking a state-run oil refinery alongside attacks on a hotel and residential buildings. Fires are extinguished, the refinery continues operating and no casualties are reported. Amid row over Iran's Dana sinking in the Indian Ocean, Raksha Mantri issues a statement, says oceans are again the center of global power dynamics and it is Bharat's responsibility to provide leadership with confidence, capability and a clear vision. The Indian Navy says it promptly launched search and rescue, deploying a P-81 Maritime Patrol, PATI Maritime Patrol aircraft and diverting ships to assist Sri Lanka in rescuing crew of the Iranian warship Iran's Dana. US President Donald Trump says he must be involved in choosing Iran's next leader, calling Mujtaba Khamenei unacceptable and urging selection of a leader who brings peace. Well, these are the top lines, viewers. Let's go back to that important conversation. Is there an attempt to try and activate some of the sectarian elements in and around Iran? Tom Cooper, as we get into that, the Kurds, which are a large stateless ethnic group with thousands of fighters across Iraq, Syria, Iran, are being eyed by the US now as a ground force against Iran, potentially changing the conflict's dynamics amid ongoing airstrikes and rising tensions. Before we get Tom into this conversation, because he's been saying about this, speaking about this for the last 2 or 3 days, saying that watch out for this, watch out for what ground action is happening. CNN has got a report. Have a look at this.
Everyone is watching to see whether Kurdish fighters will launch a ground offensive into Iran. So who are the Kurds? They're one of the largest stateless ethnic groups in the world, about 30 to 40 million people spread across a mountainous region spanning Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. After the collapse of the Ottoman Empire a century ago, they were promised a state of their own. It never materialized. In Iran, Kurdish armed groups have fought the government for decades, operating from bases along the Iraqi border. Multiple sources say the CIA has backed some of those groups as they prepare for a possible ground offensive. In Iraq, the picture is very different. Kurds here built a powerful autonomous region after the fall of Saddam Hussein and worked closely with the United States in the fight against ISIS. But they're wary of provoking Iran and are trying to stay neutral, calling for peace and stability. In Syria, Kurdish militias became one of Washington's most effective partners against ISIS, controlling much of the northeast. But they were ultimately forced to give up some of that territory to the government in Damascus. Across the region, Kurdish politics and loyalties vary widely, but many share a long history of struggle for recognition, autonomy, and in some cases, their own state.
Let's try and understand with Tom, why are they important and what is their sphere of influence? Can you You want to walk up there and explain it to our viewers? Yes. And General Pandey, please weigh in, because you also spoke about this yesterday when you were here with us in the studio. Tom first, and then I'll come across to you, General Pandey.
So, again, there is a Kurdish autonomous area in northern Iraq, something like this. And the reporter has reported it as powerful. But theoretically, this area used to be significantly larger. Just when the Iraqi army moved in and the United States did not support the Kurds probably fell back because they were not strong enough to defend it from this attack.
Right.
It's similar in Iran. In Iran, there is a coalition nowadays of 5 Kurdish parties which are claiming something like this area for themselves, but they are actually lightly armed militia at most, which can't stand any kind of serious military engagement.
Okay.
Foremost, the IGC has meanwhile moved 2 divisions into this area, reinforced. And what we are going to see on the map we have prepared with the team, the Israelis are already trying to support the Kurds, actually.
The Israelis are trying to support the Kurds. So you're saying there are boots on ground or perhaps some kind of support, tacit support.
That is not the point. According to, as far as I know, official U.S. sources, no, there are none. According to unofficial sources, yes, there are, and that already since Monday or Tuesday. So this is now, one said, heard said, and so on and so on. Nobody knows for sure. So let me bring us to this map. In this operation, the Israeli forces are responsible for operations over northwestern Iran, down to Desful, approximately this area, and then towards Tehran. U.S. forces, or at least area forces, are responsible for southern Iran, approximately from northern Kuwait down to this, along the shores of the Persian Gulf.
Right.
So, now, for 3 days already, the Israeli Air Force is bombing not only the missile bases and air defenses of the Iranian forces in western Iran, but also police stations and IGC bases in this area. So this means bases of ground forces, with the aim of weakening the grip of the regime's grip on the local population. So obviously they are preparing terrain for something to happen.
Right.
Unsurprisingly, since Monday, Tuesday, there are reports, again, unofficial reports, about appearance of whether U.S. or Kurdish forces. Apparently, those that used to be PKK, which used to control northern Syria, which was then, due to an arrangement between Washington and Damascus, was withdrawn to northern Iraq. And apparently, the Americans have brought them now to serve their interests de facto and to move into Iran.
So you're saying
why Israelis are now bombing military bases and even police stations in this part of Iran.
This part of Iran. Now, the Azeris are active here. This is Azerbaijan. The Kurds are active here. This is Syria, northern Iraq.
Northern Iraq.
Iraq, and then you have Syria. So
in Syria, there are no Kurdish forces left anymore.
So they've all moved here.
The big question is, are there any kind of armed Azeris in northern Iran? As far as I know, not.
They're not there. But you're saying that there is a deliberate design with which the U.S. and Israelis are
Foremost, Israelis are striking from the air. The U.S. is operating with help of, or in form of special forces operations.
Or in form of special forces operations. The other thing is, quickly, we'll get that image also on Tehran, and then General Pandey can come in. We've got a picture that's come in on AFP. Can we call out the Tehran image, please? The areas where Tehran is being attacked. Now, these are pictures which have come in. The state broadcaster, Revolutionary Court, Judicial Palace, Presidential Complex. We went through all of this, but Tehran is being pounded incessantly.
By the Israelis.
What's the reason why?
They are trying to destroy remaining ammunition factories, for example, ammunition storage, but also the capability of the regime to exercise influence via broadcasting system. Of course, Revolutionary Court, there is a big prison next to it also. So they are trying to weaken the regime and the regime's capability to exercise control over the population. This is why strikes on these 4 nodes, just for example. We have all seen all of these photographs the last 3 days.
Yes.
Definitely precise hits, not dispute about this. However, they have also caused lots of collateral damage, which means thousands of civilians have been killed in such strikes as well. This morning report from the Iranian Red Crescent is talking about 2,300 to 2,600 killed civilians so far in just, what, 5 days of war.
5 days of war. But if we come back here, I just want to focus, if you deep dive a little, after erasing this. See, Tabriz is not very far away from where all this activity is happening. Activation of the Azeris, movement of the Kurds, and also destruction of all of this region. Now, is this the strategic hold of the IRGC if this region falls? And also, there are indications that on this side in Balochistan, you will have, there is a Shia grouping, a Sunni grouping in Balochistan in the Sistan region, which may also be activated to start a certain level of insurgency moving in from this region.
So, as far as I can say, this part of border, Iranian border, Afghanistan to Pakistan, to Balochistan in Pakistan, was never really a border. It is, I'm following development for 25 years in this area, and I can say the Iranian forces deployed in this area, in base there, they are hunkering in their bases and not going outside because it's too dangerous. There are gangs of drug smugglers, there are armed bandits, banditry everywhere, and so on and so on. So basically, it is easy to instigate an insurgency here. But how much is this influential is a different story because this area is sparsely populated. What matters is this western, not western Iran. Because this is where the majority of Iranian population is living. And this is on what the Israelis are focusing. I have marked this area, Tabriz plus this part of Iran, because this is where the Israelis are really trying to separate, so to say, or to disable the IGC's capability to control the population. And nevertheless, assuming just one more remark, as already said, the IGC had no problems already to move 2 divisions into this area. So it has bolstered its forces along in this area.
So Iran is also reading the U.S.-Israeli gameplay. One of the things is that if you want to weaken the presence of the IRGC and also the police and bombard police stations, that means you want to leave the streets unpatrolled. You want the streets, and if people have to come out and if there's an uprising, you should not have Basij militia or the Qataib or the IRGC to shoot down these protesters.
That is what the Israelis try to prevent. However, when the IRGC moves 2 entire divisions and that undisturbed, then all the bombardment was for nothing.
Okay, we got more news coming through, and we're going to try and see if we can call up that map of that Sri Lankan coast where the frigate was blown away by the U.S. submarine. We've got the first visuals of the rescue operations. So these are pictures of the Sri Lankan Navy coming to try and rescue those who had survived the attack on the frigate. Now, there is more development. The development is that this frigate was in the EEZ of Sri Lankan waters, waiting to dock into Sri Lanka for about 40 hours. They had sought permission and they were just hanging there. So they were like sitting ducks out there in the open sea. But we have pictures coming through. Kritsween joins us with more. We'll try and go across to Kritsween and understand from her. These are pictures. How many people have been rescued? The Sri Lankan Navy trying to say that we tried to respond. The Indian Navy saying we sent across a maritime ship or an aircraft to try and see if we can aid in the rescue ops. But it was ultimately with the Sri Lankans that they have decided. Now we got more pictures. These are pictures coming in. Yes, Kritsween.
Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly open these visuals for you. Look at these pictures and take a closer look at what we've accessed in the latest. Now, these are first visuals, the Sri Lanka Navy rescuing the Iranian sailors who survived the attack. Now, do remember the number of lives lost has crossed 80, and it's been a while to that. As a matter of fact, now we're seeing rescue operations. India has also spoken of how it has supported Sri Lanka in carrying out these coordinated efforts. So these are visuals. Closely zoom into these visuals and see how this is playing out on ground zero. That having said, the one concern which has been spoken of by experts as well, Anand, this was an unarmed vessel. So an unarmed vessel, it was participating in a naval exercise which was being carried out here in India. Concerns are there, but there's also a little bit of clarity that the government has had to offer.
Yes. Now this frigate had left Indian waters. We had information that they had wanted to dock into the Sri Lankan Navy area because they were unarmed, but they were kept waiting for more than 40 hours before they were sunk in those EEZ waters of the Sri Lankans by an American submarine. What do the international rules say? What do the laws say? Could the US have done this because they are in a state of war, whether or not that frigate was armed or not, Cooper?
It's simple. Once it was in international waters, this frigate was a target for the Americans. There's no discussion about this. I cannot but wonder why has its skipper moved it out of Sri Lankan territorial waters? Because he could wait for Sri Lankan permission also inside the territorial waters, inside the safety.
Yeah, but
this would even exercise pressure upon the government in Colombo to act quicker.
Yeah, but this is what the information that we're getting after India copped a little bit of criticism internally amongst domestic politics, saying, why didn't you intervene? But we're given to understand this frigate was waiting in Sri Lankan waters for talking with, and they had asked the Sri Lankan government for permission, and they are now inquiring, and Sri Lankan MPs are asking this question too.
Excuse me, but Indian government is acting according to the international law. There is certain other government which is not acting according to international law. Armed forces of this certain other government, not only one, two of them, have sunk one warship, arguably unarmed warship of another government that is not following the international law.
Right.
What shall India do in such a case?
Right.
What to expect?
Okay, we've got limited time here on the show. I just quickly want to also understand and bring back the focus on this entire Russian oil thing from a strategic point of view.
Yes.
If India, China and some of these countries who are affected because of this energy crisis get to buy the Russian oil, and we'll try and put out some of those numbers, the kind of million barrels a day where we were and how our energy needs are. Does this have a bearing on the Russia-Ukraine war now? Or is Trump indirectly sending a message to Europe by whatever this position is, saying that, okay, go ahead and buy Russian oil now?
One of the results of the U.S.-Israeli aggression on Iran is that Europe is squeezed between the Americans and Russia.
Right.
And of course the Israelis.
Right.
Oil is going to become even more expensive for Europeans foremost. And they have no sources. Their only solution is to import even more liquid gas from the United States than they were already doing. So Europe is feeling this very hard. I've just talked with my wife, and the fuel price jumped up some 20% over the last few days. So additionally, Putin was actually losing lots of money this year, and the last year, end of the last year. And everybody was looking forward for financial collapse of Russia. Now this is not going to happen because of increased oil prices and gas prices, of course.
Right.
And in this regards, this Trump's permission for India to continue buying Russian oil is important also because in recent weeks and months, U.S. armed forces were intercepting tankers of so-called Black Fleet. These are tankers which are moving under different flags, even changing flags while underway, and exporting Russian oil abroad. And they were intercepting them and seizing the oil in question. But now these are going to be free to move to India as necessary.
Right. Now, let me also ask you, if the Iranians say, we are not going to attack a ship which does not have a US, European, or an Israeli flag, can they be trusted?
Yes, no.
Yes, no. You say yes, no. Why do you say that?
The government, or what was left of it, can be trusted. Intention is clear. They want to enable this. But the officers on the ground, they are under pressure, they are operating under combat conditions, and they cannot be trusted to always perfectly identify every single ship and target it precisely, and not the ship to the right or to the left. That's the problem. When there are so many ships in the Persian Gulf like there are right now, you don't know what is going to get hit eventually. So a special caution is necessary for the Iranian commanders simply do not have the time for that. It's as simple as that.
Let's just quickly look at the oil numbers and also the Strait of Hormuz. Can we bring out the Strait of Hormuz numbers? This is the vessel, and this is where the incident happened. But and this is contrary to claims that the war has come near India, that the target was an Iranian frigate. Let's just quickly go back to the oil requirements, if we can. Yeah. Now, these are the million barrels per day, 1.6 million barrels per day in Jan 2025. In Jan 2026, it had come down to 1.1 million barrels per day. So it's not that Bharat was not buying Russian oil. It had just reduced the consumption or the purchase, which had gone up to 1 million barrels per day in September 2025. Now, if we look at the energy crisis and where we are buying our oil, where we need our energy needs from, and in this pie, there is a huge chunk that is coming from Qatar and also from the UAE, and this is purely the oil imports. We're not even looking at the LNG and the LPG. From here, if we can go to the Strait of Hormuz and the traffic and come back to the 4th of March, we have that the entire traffic and how it has been affected. The latest update for the 4th of March, we'll try and go across to that. But 42 plus 11, nearly 54%, 53.5% of our oil requirements are coming from this region, and it is passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, these are the numbers. Now, this is the traffic. This is the 28th. Can we quickly move to the 3rd and 4th of March, please? This is 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Now, this is 3rd. And look at the 4th of March. Look at the traffic pile-up that's happening on either side of the Strait of Hormuz. There's hardly anything here. On the 4th of March, again, we are seeing there is a massive pile-up or build-up of ships that's happening here. Now, Tom, in this case, how are these nations going to identify, or how is Iran going to say, all right, this ship can pass, this ship cannot? And what's the guarantee? Who's going to give that guarantee?
So the only way for Iranians to do this is by using small UAVs with video cameras, slow flying UAVs with video cameras, because their command and control capabilities have been greatly degraded by U.S. strikes along the Persian Gulf. They have ever-growing problems in clearly operating such UAVs. There are also huge volumes of electronic warfare or jamming, so-called jamming of electronic systems have been deployed by U.S. forces, particularly along the Hormuz Straits. So they have huge problems with just operating UAVs, especially such small UAVs. I'm not talking about Shahid or similar, but really small, this size UAVs, which could now fly out, check the tanker in question, check the hull name, check the flag, and so on. This is going to be very complex for Iranians. Therefore, one has to fear that there are going to be indiscriminate attacks or attacks hitting wrong targets, so to say, wrong ships.
Now, the other question is, who controls the Strait of Hormuz? The U.S.-Israeli combined,
right now, nobody,
or the Iranians? Right now, it's nobody. They are saying we are not blocking ships, but they are bombing oil tankers. They're bombing the Omani tankers. They are forcing Qatar to shut down its production facility. They are bombing UAE tankers. There are Indian ships, and there are about 33,000 Indians across these seafarers who are still stuck. Those ships are not getting traffic. Iranians say we are not blocking them. The Americans are saying we will give you safe passage and insurance, but nobody can trust anybody. But this narrow strait, this controls 45 to 50% of the world's business. And that's the big choke point.
The next problem is also insurances. All the ships have to be insured. Cargo has to be insured. And everybody is refusing to insure the cargo and the vessels currently that might cross the Hormuz Strait in the near future.
Right.
So Lloyd's of London, all the other insurers say, no, sorry, what our problems, we are not going to pay for all of this.
So they're not going to cover the insurance, they're not going to pay for it. That's all we have time for in this edition of Inside the Bunker. Thank you for watching. Stay with us here on CNN News 18.
I would request my colleague Akash Sharma to also join me here in the studio so that we can take this forward and understand exactly what are we looking at, because it's a choke point. It is rather vital. We are talking about the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the global oil really passes the Strait of Hormuz. And if you can take a look at the traffic here, we have just placed it here on the map. This is the Strait of Hormuz. We've just expanded it for our viewers to see exactly what are we talking about as far as this Gulf of Oman is concerned. It divides Iran and Oman. And I request Akash also to come join me here. This is the traffic that we are looking at here, Akash. All of these red dots, of course, talk about the stranded ships. If you could just help us explain to our viewers, how badly is this going to be impacting India, A, and the other routes that we continue to talk about, whether it is, of course, the Cape of Good Hope for that matter, or the other route which has the Houthis also, really eyeing vessels, particularly after this escalation by the U.S. and Israel on Iran.
Right. Griha, you see a number of aspects that I'll talk about. First of all, these images, this is a playback from marine traffic where you are seeing these visuals of these vessels. These are oil tankers or the sort of vessels, that we have in this particular area. This is Persian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, and in fact, this Strait of Hormuz. This is the particular area that is the contested area as of now. While Iran is claiming that they have not restricted any sort of traffic, they are of course blaming it on US. But then on the other side, we have the reality where we know, in fact, agencies like IFC, IOR are telling us that how more than 10 ships have been targeted in the last 3 to 4 days. And this is particular area where we have, in fact, this is from 2nd March, Griha, this particular playback. But then we have the recent imageries as well. And these recent imageries are somewhere suggesting that how more than 37 Indian ships, till yesterday, was stranded there. The north part of it for outward traffic, and the south part of this particular area is for inward traffic. And we say that around 40% of the Indian crude comes from this particular route. So we are of course going to be impacted, and that is the reason why when it is about the 30 days relaxation or the sort of tweet that is coming. And this is in fact from the 4th March, the recent images from the same area where we have these vessels that are basically not docking, but we can see in fact the group of these vessels that have got oil tankers, and in fact the other variety of vessels that are very much there.
Akash, why we are putting out these images and we are constantly looking at it on a day-wise basis. So help us for our viewers to understand how bad this has become after this choke point has been practically blocked. Of course, the blockage announcement really cannot wholly come in from Tehran because there are underwriters who look at these vessels, insurance is involved, and once a conflict zone really is something that we're talking about, the insurance also fall back. Now that the US is talking about insuring the vessels, first it spoke about really giving an access, carrying the US Navy really coming in and escorting these vessels. How much of practicality
There's a lot going on all over the world. We've got a panel of experts who can understand this region and also the dynamics. And if this war and this fury in the Gulf stretches on, viewers, what's going to be the end game? How long and how much is it going to pinch all of us? We're already running a bill of $1 billion per day, this cost, and we put that out also. But before we go across and have a conversation with them, a candid, open one, and get their perspectives, a quick check of the headlines. As oil prices spike sharply, big energy boost for Bharat. The United States issues a 30-day waiver allowing India to continue purchasing Russian oil. The United States strikes intensify against the Iranian Navy, sinking 30 ships and hitting a drone ship. Iranian ballistic missile attacks drop 90%, while drone attacks fall 83%. Iran hits Bahrain with a missile, striking a state-run oil refinery alongside attacks on a hotel and residential buildings. Fires are extinguished. The refinery continues operating and no casualties reported. Amid row over the Iran's Dena sinking in the Indian Ocean, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh issues a statement, says oceans are again the center of global power dynamics, and it is Bharat's responsibility to provide leadership with confidence, capability and a clear vision. The Indian Navy says it promptly launched search and rescue, deploying a P-81 Maritime patrol aircraft and diverting ships to assist Sri Lanka in rescuing crew of Iranian warship Iran's Dena. US President Donald Trump says he must be involved in choosing Iran's next leader, calling Mustafa Khamenei unacceptable and urging selection of a leader who brings peace. Right. On day 7 of the conflict, intense military exchanges continue between Iran and the US-Israel coalition with escalating regional impact. Iran is launching fresh waves of missile and drone strikes at Israeli territory and U.S. bases in Gulf states, triggering alerts and interceptions in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Qatar. Israeli forces are responding with air operations, including strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. In the Gulf, Iran's Revolutionary Guards reportedly struck a U.S. oil tanker in the northern Gulf, causing fire damage. Gulf states continue to tighten air defenses and scanning routines amid ongoing threats. Pentagon leadership asserting U.S.-Israeli forces are gaining control of Iran's air defenses and missile networks, although Iran persists in low volume yet sustained strikes across multiple countries. They have gone into quasi-guerrilla mode. Let's go straight across to our guests and understand from them their perception of this fight, this fury in the Gulf, and how long do they believe this is going to last. Sitting right next to me is Erik Solheim, President Europe-Asia Center and former Under-Secretary General of the UN and former Minister of Norway. He is with us in the studio. Erik, thank you very much. Next to him is Gianni Vernetti, former Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs of Italy. Thank you so much. Wailava, the familiar face, senior journalist with us. Thank you very much. And Jeffrey Van Orden, Vice President, New Direction, the Foundation for European Reform, former leader of the British Conservatives in European Parliament, former chairman, European Parliament Delegation for Relations with India, the United Kingdom, and distinguished fellow, Gold Institute. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's start from the far corner. Jeff, do you see this ending any soon, or is it going to just increase the headache globally?
No, it's got to end soon. I would imagine that there are talks going on discreetly at this moment. It's difficult to see at this stage what sort of government will replace the mullahs, but the mullahs need to go. That's very clear. Probably some sort of technocratic government in order to give the Iranian people sufficient time to organize for democracy. Democracy is not something that's going to come overnight.
Regime change, the mullahs need to go, is the US-Israeli position, while the Iranians believe regime continuation by any form is victory for them. How do you see this?
Well, I don't see this finishing very fast, because definitely the Iranians have prepared for this kind of an attack by the United States and Israel. Having said that, I would say that they already knew that this attack going to happen anytime. And besides, they are already causing damage and they are causing pain for both of them, despite the fact that the United States may be going for another alternative kind of attack on Iran to make sure that they calm down and to succumb to the pressure of the United States. But however, there is no sign on the air that they are going to do it soon. And the longer the war continue, the more the American will be in trouble, and the Israelis as well, because Iran is a geopolitically a very important country to deal with. And secondly, it's not a small country like Iraq or like Libya or Venezuela. It's a country with the power to reckon with.
Right. Gianni, your thoughts? Europe seems to be in two minds about this whole conflict. Some nations have endorsed support. Other nations have said, we don't want this war. How do you see this?
I see that Iran, during the, let's say, 3 decades, posed an existential threat to the state of Israel, systematically export terrorism and instability, promoting and supporting Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthi insurgencies around the Middle East. So it was an agent of chaos for many, many years. And I think that regime change is a possibility on the table, and it's expected. It's not an easy task. It needs time. As said before, democracy cannot arrive overnight. But I really think that this confrontation will not stand for long, because I think that it should be a short military operation.
The Iranians like the long haul. They're in it for the long haul. They like a scrappy fight. Trump is not someone who's got the stomach for a long fight. Erik, where is the world seeing this go, and is this going to perhaps create a certain amount of flux economically also, along with perhaps redefining world order?
Look, if there is one lesson from history, is that it's very, very, very easy to start a war and very difficult to end it.
Right.
I mean, you think George W. Bush would have gone into 20 years of war in Afghanistan if he had the choice in 2001. I think he would have started a war in Iraq if he had known that it would last for 10 years.
Right.
Of course, no. And Trump, I think, has no plan. The United States is totally dominant in military terms. It can wipe out every asset in Iran, everything.
Yeah.
But it's very weak in political terms. It has no mechanism to force a regime change. Regime change in history has never, ever happened from the air. But if he's lucky, a new and better regime could come up. There's no different view on that. I mean, this regime in Iran has not been flexible, not been pragmatic, been very ideological, and created a lot of international chaos, but he has no mechanism to replace it with something better. So most likely it will go on, and exactly because the Iranian government is brutal, it has a very high pain level.
Yeah.
It will be able to take a lot of pain without giving in.
Without giving in. Please don't wait for me to ask questions. Please jump in with your thoughts. It's a conversation, not a Q&A. Yes, Jeff.
I mean, I disagree that Iran has the capacity for a long conflict. They don't. Their capabilities have been seriously eroded already. They have no means of defending the airspace over Iran. We're seeing now of their ability to carry out missile and drone attacks. So I don't think they have the stomach for a long conflict, and I think you will find elements now in the Iranian armed forces that will very rapidly seek to bring about a change.
You think it will come? Yes, sir.
I mean, the best possible outcome would be a less ideological, less extremist Iranian government, maybe run by some people from the Revolutionary Guards or from the military. Democracy is just a dream. It can never happen in this form.
Right.
But we must remember also that this attack by Israel and the United States and Iran is against any global norm.
Absolutely.
And it's very dangerous. It's also totally undermining the European position, which is, the Russian attack on Ukraine was illegitimate.
Yeah.
And then always, maybe it's the United States is allowed to attack Venezuela and Iran. This is absolute hypocrisy, and it completely undermines the European standing in the world, which should be that we oppose all attacks on foreign nations, whether Russia do it or the United States of America.
And by the way, I think that the people of Iran is tired of this regime. Remember, just a few weeks ago, there was an uprising all around in the cities, in Tehran, but also in the small villages all around the country. And there was very harsh repression. It's assessed by 30,000 young people dead in the street. So people is tired. The minorities, they were very much oppressed. Think about the Kurds, think about the Azeri, the Baluchi. So the different ethnic minorities in Iran were very much oppressed during that time. So I think, of course, it's not easy, but there are chances that there is a positive democratic transition. It will take time, it will be a tough issue, but I think this regime is more and more weak, and especially from within, not just from the external attack. So I'm quite optimistic on that.
My take here is, are we legitimizing this war? The war is already illegal. It's against UN Charter. It's against any law in the world.
Yeah.
We have to agree on that. The second part, who appointed the United States as the policeman to attack any countries? Whether they can take Libya, they can take Afghanistan, they took Iraq, they're taking Venezuela, tomorrow Greenland, Algeria, Nigeria, name it. I mean, we need to understand, as a human being, this country have been surviving with an elected government by the people of Iran. They have a supreme religious leader. You went to the country saying that they have an illegal military thinking of a nuclear programs. When you and a nuclear, undeclared nuclear state, go and attack them. I mean, I need to be logically understand if I belong to that region of the West Asia, the Middle East, I want to understand who gave you the leverage or the liberty of attacking another country.
Who gave Ayatollah Khamenei to say death to Israel, death to Jews?
This is 1953. No, it was American there. They were the American there. No, we know it. It's not a question. You see, Israel said they wanted to throw a bomb in Gaza. Does it make that sense also? They said, let's throw a nuclear bomb. No, rhetoric is always said by everybody.
No, not rhetoric. Absolute action. October 7. Did Iran not hail October 7? Why did Iran hail? Why did they back October 7?
I tell you, this is our wrong reading of history.
Yeah.
Every European understands the fight in the Middle East because of the creation of Israel at the cost of the Palestinian. The two-state solution was there. Where is the Palestinian state? The whole fight is taking place in occupied territories. And that is your legitimate right to defend your territory.
For that, creation of Hezbollah is okay, creation of Hamas is okay, creation of the Houthis is okay. All of that came from the Iranians?
No. So creation of Hezbollah is because of Israeli occupation of south of Lebanon, 1982.
Okay, Eric Solheim wants to say something.
I think we can have two thoughts at the same time.
Yeah.
One thought is we go into the law of the jungle if every major power is free to attack a smaller nation. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
There are many rough states in the world, and Israel is one of them. I would not advocate that anyone should attack Israel because of all the atrocities Israel has done. Netanyahu is indicted for the International Criminal Court.
Right.
Still, we should not attack Israel, and nor should we attack Iran, even if we despise the government there. It's possible to both be upholding global principles and being opposed to the government of Iran. But unfortunately, this is likely to be much longer than people think. And then it will have huge ruptures. Trump may give in because the gasoline price will hit him in the upcoming elections in November in the United States. We do not know. What we do know from history is that I can think of 1 or 2 wars in all of human history who was shorter who those who started the war believed they would be. Nearly all wars are much longer, much more bloody, much more protracted, and they're difficult to end.
Well, the only war or conflict in recent times that ended in less than 90 hours was Operation Sindoor. But
exactly,
there the political objectives were very clear.
That is a stand-alone example of a wise leader, Narendra Modi, understanding we need to make a case, but we also need to stop the war. That's not the rule of global diplomacy. It's exactly the opposite.
No, does it not stem from a clear political objective, Jeffrey? Here, is there a clear political objective? Because every day the goalpost seems to be changing. One day it's regime change, next day it's ballistic missiles, third day it's nuclear. Now it's back to a regime that is palatable to me and I get to choose.
Well, I think the clear political objective is to remove Iran as the source of terrorism and trouble in the Middle East and beyond the Middle East. That is the objective. Now, it's multi-layered, the solution to that. Yes, we must prevent them having a nuclear capability. Yes, you need to release the oppression of the Iranian people and get rid of this mullah regime. Give the Iranian people a chance to breathe, and we need to stop all this intervention in other countries. We've heard about Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis. These are all Iranian creations. They are Iranian creations, and not only that, we've seen terrorism around the world sponsored by the Iranians. They are a menace with this regime. The Iranian people are desperate for freedom. They're a great people. It's a wonderful country. They need to have the opportunity to breathe again, and the women get off these veils and to be able to live their lives. That's what we all want in our countries. We want a better life for future generations. We want children to have good educations. We want people to be happy and prosperous. In all countries, we want that.
Right.
You can't do it with these oppressive regimes.
Yeah. I'm just asking you this.
Yeah.
This entire invasion by the U.S. Israel and the bombing and this war, taking it, an outsider coming in, will this even within the domestic fraternity bring them all under the flag, despite them not liking the regime? That's one part. The other thing is there is a sizable Shia population across the world in various countries, even in Europe. There will be a certain resentment and anger simmering in. Now, how does society and how does the world deal with this? Is this going to spawn more radical entities, or is there a peaceful alternative to this?
I think that the issue within Islam is not just anymore the confrontation between Shia and Sunni, but within the Shia community and within the Sunni community, there is a confrontation between two different views. and advanced, innovative, and modern views of Islam, fully compatible with democracy and what we really think is necessary, and other conservative views within both communities. So I'm not sure that the Shia community in Iraq or in other countries will follow the Iranian regime in its systematic export of instability and terrorism. I may add something. A few days ago, President Zelensky said that during 4 years of the large-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, 57,000 drones, Iranian drones, were launched by the Russians towards the Ukrainian cities, towards Ukrainian civilians. So Iran is an agent of chaos, is exporting instability far beyond the Middle East. So, and that's, I think, is a crucial point.
Is Iran an agent of chaos, or has it taken an anti-America position? So whoever backs America, America's friend is my enemy, and whoever is America's enemy is my friend. Is that the position the Iranian regime took, or would you want to agree with Gianni here?
Look, the arguments we hear for this invasion is exactly the same argument we heard for the need for the West to stand 20 years in Afghanistan. I mean, that invasion was there was good reasons to do it in the early days, but it lasted for 20 years with enormous suffering for the Afghans.
Right.
It's exactly the same arguments we heard for the invasion of Iraq. I mean, Saddam Hussein was an enormous threat to the entire world, we were told, and he wasn't. And we have seen the suffering, and also in the United States. And now you struggle to find the one American who is in favor of the invasion of Iraq. At the time, 95% supported. This invasion is not even supported by the majority of Americans, and it's highly unlikely to achieve the result. The result which the two gentlemen here argue is that the world will be better off with a new government in Iran. But what's the space for people in Iran who oppose the government under the attack of the United States to go out in the street and do something?
Correct.
Trump even told the Iranian people, you should stay at home when I bomb you. Well, how can any regime change happen on the ground in...
because they wait for the bombing to end, we will clear the passage for you. Or did they miss the window? When the January uprising was happening on the streets, should the outside intervention have happened then? Or have two events happen at disparate times, and that's why they are not synced?
Accept that there are limits to foreign interference. If you don't like a government, and there are many governments in the world I don't like, leave it to the people of that nation to change their government. If you try to do it from outside, in nearly all cases you fail. There are a few examples, but nearly all American regime change operations in the last 70 years have failed. Many of them spectacularly hit back towards the United States, as the gentleman said. And the attack on the Iranian Prime Minister in the 1950s spectacularly was as a boomerang hit the United States. So why involve yourself in all these regime change operations when history tells us it's much more likely to fail than to succeed?
I'm just asking you this, did Trump have this in his head, even in his first term, that there are 5 rogue nations and I need to sort them out for stability? Venezuela needed to be sorted, and because of the Chinese influence, and China is the main adversary. Iran needed to be sorted because of China's investment in Iran, so much so that the technology transferred to the level to which their ballistic missiles program, it's all been helped and designed by the Chinese. That's the level of involvement. So is that the larger game, that let me take out the rogue elements that have been planted who got Chinese and Russian support one by one and reduce it to 1 or 2 rogues only and remove the rest? Is there any logic in Trump taking this line and then approaching Iran?
I'm not sure if this logic is within Trump's mind, but by the way, that's for sure there is a growing confrontation in the world between autocracies and democracies. If you think about the very strict coordination between China, Iran, and Russia on many different issues. And as you said, China was the most important purchaser of oil from Venezuela and Iran, and both under sanction. And China transferred technologies to Iran that was, with this technology, Iran was able to build a ballistic missiles program. And it's difficult to deny that the ballistic missiles program, together with the legal nuclear program, poses an existential threat to the state of Israel. You said before, October 7th, that does not came out from nothing.
There is fundamental issue here, is that when the United States started the policy of regime change by force, we all saw throughout the 3 decades of this policy being followed up. Whether it's in Iran also, 1953, Mossadegh prime minister, the democratically elected was removed by the American, the CIA and the MI5 and even the Mossad. And then they brought the Shah. That's okay. If you want to bring democracy, you do not have to attack a religious leader of a supreme leader of sentiment among the Shia community in the world. This is one. The second part, you're attacking a school, you're killing 160 children between the age of 10 and 12, and you people asking the President Trump, did you attack a school? He said what they were doing on Saturday. I mean, there is no difference whether the children died or no. It's for him that Saturday school is open. So what I'm trying to say, regime change, President Trump himself, he himself criticized his predecessor.
Killing of the 170 odd children is tragic. But those 30,000 protesters who were shot dead point blank.
How you know 30,000 protesters?
So,
we know.
Even if there were 3,000 protesters who were shot down point blank, how can you broad brush that?
I'm
how
not
can
saying
you just justify
this is
that?
the largest demonstration in Iran since 2006. I have been following it.
The religious leader issues a fatwa with a clock tower saying 2027. 8,000 ballistic missiles and death of Israel. We're going to wipe out Israel, and it's celebrated out there with his sanctions.
Israel Ben Gurion said the Arab want to throw us to the sea, and then he said it, and we adopted.
What is the doctrine of the Hamas? Wipe out the Jews, kill all Israel. Wipe out all Jews. Death to Israel, kill all Jews. That's the doctrine of the Hamas. What did the Khomeini declare after the 12-day war happened? 8,000 ballistic missiles, and 2027 I want to wipe out Israel. Why did he say that if his intent was not there to try and do? See, moment you have this kind of a position, I will wipe you out or you will wipe me out, and everybody worries, if I don't wipe him out, he will wipe me out. There will always be conflict. Yes, Jeff.
I think any sensible people recognize that there's got to be an accord with Israel and recognition of the right of the state. No, but the recognition of the right of the state of Israel to exist by all the countries in the region. We saw with the Abraham Accords a real movement in that direction. Saudi Arabia was on the point of signing up to the Abraham Accords, and that is what triggered the Iran-sponsored Hamas attack on Israel on October the 23rd. So Iran wants to ensure that chaos and catastrophe continues in all of those areas.
But do we justify the killing of 67,000 Palestinians and buried 20,000
well, we
underground?
I have
it's
to
not
say,
about justifying. It's about who wants peace, actually. Which entity wants peace? Eric, we've got 5 minutes. That's all. So we'll just focus on the Strait of Hormuz problem also after you make your point. Yes, Eric.
I think we need to go back to what is global recognized laws which are enshrined in the UN Charter, which says you cannot attack another nation, even if you don't like the leader of that nation. And it's fair that people didn't like Mr. Khamenei because many of the accusations
What about Russia's attack on the Ukraine? What
which
did the United Nations do about that?
Which is, of course, completely illegal, and we need to condemn both the Russian attack on Ukraine as well as Israeli attacks on Gaza, as well as the U.S. attack on Iran. If you don't do that, there's no any laws left longer in the world, and it's a law of the jungle, and any nation which is bigger than the other can freely attack that nation with any excuse.
Yeah, because China can attack Taiwan.
But just
it gives them
one comment about China. Yeah. Because China has a very different approach to the U.S. By the way, China has the same approach as India, which is they work with whoever is in government everywhere. Both China and India has worked very well with the Khamenei government of Iran, but they will work very well with the new government also, because they don't interfere in the internal affairs. If a new government of Iran comes forward and work with the international community, China will be very happy. They work with the new government of Venezuela and import oil from there, because China's interest is not in who is running any other nation. China's and India's interest is international trade, good global relations, not to portray one leader for another nation.
I have to say, it's a travesty to say that Israel attacked Gaza. Hamas attacked Israel. Israel then responded. Israel moved out of Gaza in 2005. They forcibly removed Israeli settlers. They handed Gaza over to the Palestinians. And what happened? Within days, there were rocket attacks from Gaza into Israel. That is the problem.
The attack has never stopped ever since the Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip.
Now,
never.
See,
It's
my,
written
my,
in
my
the
point is, every time you're going to say you did wrong, the other side is going to say you did wrong. Where's the solution to this? Right now, all of our countries are going to suffer because the Strait of Hormuz is blocked.
Yes.
There's no trade, there's no commerce, there's no economics. Both sides are going to, no side has,
So that brings me to the answer of your questions, that the United States is fighting two wars in the region. One is a global war. It's a conflict of interest with the superpower. They wanted to control the Strait of Hormuz. There is a Red Sea, the Mediterranean. So the global trade is affected and impacted. European and China and India and the rest of the world affect. And the second part, this is our narrative, what we understand. It's not the conspiracy theory, that Israel dominance in the region is to be prevail economically, militarily, and
the Gulf countries are afraid of Iranians. The Muslim nations themselves, the OIC itself has not come out and backed Iran.
And the Gulf countries made the right choice with the Abraham Accords. That solution is peace. Solution is dialogue. And when the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain decided to sign a peace deal with Israel, with the Abraham Accords, made a great choice because they bet on peace.
Why you have to go for a new sort of religion when you can
implement what you have? The Abraham Accords were supposed to be signed by all nations to bring stability.
Exactly.
Who disrupted it?
We always want.
That's a question.
We don't have a problem with the Jew.
Jeff to your left and Gianni to your right have asked this question.
I already.
Exactly.
Final word, Eric. We're going to wind this up.
Saudi Arabia refused to sign.
Saudi Arabia.
They were going to sign it, and then suddenly you have this whole attack on Israel and so on.
Not even Saudi Arabia agreed to the Abraham Accord because they wanted Israel out of Gaza before they were ready to do something like that. Let's agree with the last comment from an Italian friend here. What is needed is a dialogue to resolve the core issues here and to stop the world moving into the law of the jungle. That will be very dangerous for India and for everyone else.
Absolutely. Fair point that the gentlemen here make. Let's hope the wise men have spoken and wisdom prevails overall. We need peace and not conflict all around us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us here on this broadcast and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you. Thank you. These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases and the Iranians. Are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. Sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another U.S. airbase
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
Now that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures.
Or it was a SAM that was hitting something. Yeah.
The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand when it is targeting these air bases, Iran. We'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. But understand from Tom. What is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the U.S.
Disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely, the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling U.S. and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing U.S. military facilities.
If U.S. and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
yes,
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read
It's a mix of both of this. Okay. The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again, and then let's try and get a deep dive into what is next, which are going to be the, and we're doing it all in real time. I just quickly want to see if we have the mirror here. I just want to dwell on the cost of this war. Viewers, just quickly want to tell you the cost of this war. It's gone up to 6,122,590,000 and counting, 600,000 and counting. This is in 6 days, 2 hours, 56 minutes.
Hello, Navaiva. Welcome. Thanks for staying tuned to CNN News 18. I'm Kritsween Valia. We keep up with more breaking news coming in this afternoon. We have a reaction from U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, Christopher Lando, who says India should understand that we are not going to make the same mistakes with India that we made with China 20 years ago. Now, these comments have been made by the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State at the Raisina Dialogue 2026. He also said, the next thing we know, you are beating us in many commercial things. So possibly a remark that has been passed off amid the ongoing conversations taking place between India and the United States as far as the trade agreement is concerned, categorically stating that India should understand we're not going to make the same mistakes that we made with China 20 years ago. He also says this is in terms of how you'll be able to develop all these markets, and the next thing we know, you're going to be beating us in the commercial space. So that's a reassurance that's coming in from the United States, because remember, the trade negotiations and conversations around it for sure have taken a backseat at the moment given the ongoing conflict in West Asia. But this, once again, a promising statement made by the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State during the ongoing Raisina dialogue. Listen in.
Excited about the trade deal that is almost at the finish line now, and think that can be the basis for really unlocking almost limitless potential. And so we are very much excited on focusing with India on these economic and commercial opportunities. And so, but again, India should understand that we're not going to make the same mistakes with India that we made with China 20 years ago in terms of saying, oh, we're gonna let you, be able to develop all these markets, and then the next thing we know, you're beating us in a lot of commercial things. We're going to make sure that whatever we do, it's fair to our people, because ultimately we have to be accountable to our own people, just as the government of India has to be accountable to its people. So again, I think on the commercial economic front, it's incredibly bright.
A bright and a promising future between India and the United States, but this is a remark that will not go unnoticed. Akanksha Swaroop joins us with more. Akanksha, we clearly heard the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State say in as many words that we will not make the same mistake that we made with China 20 years ago. Whatever trade negotiations take place have to be mutually beneficial.
Absolutely, and this is also an underhand remark coming in from Christopher Landau, Kritsween, the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, who is currently making that address at the Raisina dialogue. Now, let's put this into perspective. yes, he's sounding reassuring when it comes to, say, the prospects of doing business with India and a bilateral trade agreement, which should be happening anytime now in March, as had been confirmed by the Indian Commerce Minister Shri Piyush Goyal. But more importantly, the analogy is now being drawn with China. While that may be heartwarming for several economists over here, that India is indeed in the league of the big guns like China, but US is very mindful of that, and that is what Christopher Landau is doing when he's drawing that parallel. He's saying that we are not going to make that same mistake that we did with China, that we allow you to develop those markets and then you know, our own interests of the people, which is the American people, gets compromised. So he's also speaking to the MAGA audience of Donald Trump. He's also speaking to that very philosophy that Donald Trump used to arrive in the White House, which is make America great again. And that is exactly what Christopher Landau has said, that, you know, if it is about the Indian government and the interests of protecting the Indian people, similarly it is for us to protect the interests of the American people, and that will always be our top priority. So it's also a reminder at a very crucial, critical juncture, this when India and the United States are sitting right at that point where they are going to finalize a bilateral trade agreement. We don't know if the ongoing conflict in West Asia is sort of going to delay that further and the Supreme Court's ruling, but we can tell you that this is a reminder that it will be US which will continue to call the shots, whether it is in terms of global economy, and that is exactly what Donald Trump is doing by embarking on that war in West Asia, challenging China's dominance in West Asia as well. So Christopher Landau, in fact, only echoing the actions of his president.
That the United States will continue to trade with caution is the pointed remark that he's made at the ongoing rise in our dialogue. Akanksha, stay on with us. There's more breaking news that's just come in. So putting out details for our viewers as we speak, India is telling refiners to maximize LPG output for domestic sales only. So that's the latest bit of breaking news update that's just come in. Do remember, a lot of focus as we speak on how India will look at its energy requirements amid the ongoing West Asia war, especially given that the Strait of Hormuz is closed for one and all, and we're seeing the kind of the ship traffic there also in a sense get blocked since Iran had announced that it will stay shut. Given that, we're seeing a lot of interim measures already being taken by India. It's turning to other nations for gas. The United States in the latest has also, remember, offered a 30-day waiver to procure Russian oil. But India also telling refiners to maximize LPG output for domestic sales only. Pallavi Ghosh joins us with more details. This is in line with ensuring that we don't compromise on our energy requirements, Pallavi.
Yes, and absolutely. And Christine, apart from that, it also is the government's position that we are in a comfortable position. Apart from having adequate supplies of crude oil and energy products, we also have adequate supplies of LNG and LPG, which should last from 15 to 30 days. That's the calculation of the government. And what happens is that there are stocks which are available of LPG, which gets converted to LNG. And now all the stakeholders have been asked to step up their production so as to ensure that there is no shortage as far as the consumers are concerned. What happens in case of shortage, as we all know, Christine, is there's also an impact on the pricing. That is what the government really wants to avoid. Government's position is that we are comfortable and the consumers have nothing to worry about in terms of a huge spike in the prices. But more importantly, the government also wants to ensure that there is no panic buying, there's no hoarding which takes place, and hence this needs to step up the production.
Okay, so that's a word of caution that's coming in from the government sources now pointing to how an attempt will be made to maximize the LPG output for domestic use only, domestic sales only, and India asking all its refiners to maximize production on LPG and also make fuel available only to 3 state-run companies. And we also have the names, Pallavi, isn't it? We seem to have lost that line. The 3 companies that I just mentioned are Indian Oil, HPCL and BPCL. It's a government order that clearly highlights how only these 3 companies will be given fuel. So fuel will be made available only to these 3 state-run companies. Now, a host of measures have been announced by India already. Remember, it's turning to a few countries like Australia, for instance, for its LPG needs, and those countries also in complete agreement as far as crude oil is concerned. Again, there's a plan B in place. At the moment, India is comfortably positioned, especially given the reserves that it has, which is going to keep India in a comfortable position for the next 6 to 8 weeks, followed by now possibly another 30-day waiver that the United States has also granted, remember, which has also led to a little bit of politics here in India, with the opposition Congress of the opinion that who is United States to really allow us, grant us or refuse permission to procure oil from what suits us, in this case Russia, because remember, that's one important source being looked at as we speak. There are other parallel sources that India had already looked at. In the last 5 to 6 days, government is holding negotiations on this front on a daily basis. But now India will be allowed for 30-day period, India will be allowed to procure Russian oil. Remember, Russian oil was still being procured. It's not as though in the interim, amid the negotiations with the United States on a bilateral trade deal, the oil procurement from Russia had come down to nil. India was still purchasing Russian oil. Just the quantity had gone down a tad bit, and that could see an uptick given this 30-day waiver or concession that has been granted by the United States of America. In the meanwhile, you have this one plan that India is looking at in terms of LPG. India telling refiners to maximize LPG output for domestic sales only. India's asked all the refiners to maximize production of liquefied petroleum gas and make fuel available only to 3 state-run companies. Let's talk about the execution in detail. Once again, Pallavi continues to stay on with us. Pallavi, how is this execution going to play out with fuel being made available only to Indian Oil, HPCL and BPCL? What is the practice that we'll see possibly in the next few days?
So we're going to wait for some more clarification, which is really going to come in from the government. But Christine, the government has been making it very clear that, first of all, that the 24/7 monitoring of the situation is taking place, and that monitoring is not just taking cognizance of what's happening along the Strait of Hormuz or the route. It is also happening as far as the supplies which are available with that. That's also an important factor, and that is why in these daily briefings you have of the minister along with the CMDs of all the oil companies, of Petronet, so on and so forth. All of them are basically keeping a tab on the situation. We've been pointing this out, which government sources have been telling us, is that there has been 25 days of crude oil, 25 days of the energy products which are available, which is a total of 50 days. As far as the LPG and LNG is concerned, it is 25 to 30 days. But more importantly, Christine, these are ones which can be replenished. These stocks can be replenished to meet up with the supply as well as the demand. And of course, procurement of LPG from other countries. We have our own, resources as well, but we are looking at other countries, and that is why we are constantly in touch with OPEC, IAEA. We are in touch with Canada. We are in touch with Australia. So that is why the government feels that this is a comfortable situation for us. But yes, stepping up the production is also to ensure that the pricing doesn't get affected.
And in the latest, we've already heard the U.S. Secretary also make it amply clear. Treasury Secretary has said a 30-day waiver has been granted to India. It's led to a little bit of politics here in India, but that's going to come in as a huge relief too, isn't it, Pallavi?
Christine, but there is also clarification which has come in by way of a government sources that we had not stopped buying Russian oil. The quantity has gone down, but that is also because our procurement of Russian oil was depending on the demand and the supply. So because we wanted to go in for the national interest, the best possible pricing, that is why we were opting for Russian oil. And that, that procurement has been coming down. It's not got anything to do with any amount of pressure. But yes, many would see this as reassuring words, but certainly the opposition parties are going to see this as yet another example of American pressure on India's politics and economics.
Okay, many thanks, Pallavi, for joining us with all those details. We'll keep revisiting this story. It's a story that impacts global economy, so keeping a sharp focus on this one. For now, shifting our attention to more breaking news that's just come in. There has been a significant drop in maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz as on expected lines. The AFP infographic of the Strait of Hormuz clearly shows traffic before and after the announcement of the blockade by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Now, This, remember, is the latest coming in, and we'll also try and establish the story by going over to our colleagues who are going to be putting out details here. But for now, what we can tell you is that there has been a significant drop in what we're seeing clearly through these maps as well. Akanksha is with us on the broadcast. Akanksha, please join me here. Let's take our viewers through this one map, which we'll shortly pull up. This is the AFP infographic of the Strait of Hormuz. It's very interesting how not much has changed the last 5-6 days in terms of improvement, at least. So the last 5-6 days, at least improvement-wise, we've not seen a greater inflow and outflow of the ships or the vessels from this area. But yes, what do we see here before and after? Yeah.
Let's make it out for our viewers. In green, scattered dots is what the what the maritime traffic looked like in the Strait of Hormuz. As you can see, this is the image coming in from 1st of January this year, cut to 3 months later. Look at the traffic. It's just completely empty, the entire strait. In fact, it's before the strait and after the strait ends. Remember, it's a very small chokehold over there as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned. It's nearly empty. And from what information that is pouring in now, Kritsween, is that even the Chinese vessels are receding because the conflict is now turning into a maritime conflict as well, whether it is Strait of Hormuz or in the IOR, that is the Indian Ocean region. We are seeing the conflict spill over and challenging the maritime security. But coming back to the Strait of Hormuz, this is an image that's come from 4th of March, and it is as recent as that. Remember, 80% of the oil and LNG traffic used to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. India's own needs, in fact, 1/4 of our needs were met through a route that was, in fact, 40% of our oil, Brent crude, and 50 to 60% of our LNG. All of that, in fact, used to come through the Strait of Hormuz. And if the IRGC has now announced that there's going to be a lockdown out here, even though there is no official declaration, but there is one.
So what is the story all about? What is it that the IRGC has said? Is there any official communication that's taken place? There's another official with the UN from Iran who's gone on to say, look, we are not to be blamed for the closure of Strait of Hormuz. So there's a lot of back and forth that's also underway.
I want to tell our viewers that Strait of Hormuz is very much strategically currently in favor of Iran. If you look at the location, Porbandar is a port of Iran which is very much located here. It is adjacent to the Strait of Hormuz. This is the only key bargaining chip that Iran is actually sitting over, because once they lock this down, the overall global needs of as far as Brent crude, LNG, LPG, all of those are brought to a screeching halt. And this bargaining chip currently is what Iran is actually sitting over. More importantly, it's also led to a bloodbath in the stock markets, all the way from Nifty to Dow. Here in the Dalal Strait, we've seen the dollar actually hike up by 10% almost since compared to just a week ago, last Friday.
Imagine what happens to the global oil supply. The number of vessels you can see here as of Jan 1 this very year, vis-a-vis what we see here, there certainly is going to be a negative impact on global economy, and that's exactly what experts are worried about. Thank you so much, Akanksha. We'll come back to you. We need to keep talking about this story, but for the moment, let's also shift our attention to more breaking news that's just come in. In a news update, we're learning Israeli army has said it's destroyed 6 Iranian ballistic missile launchers overnight. It's an official communication by the IDF. Prior to the launch towards Israel, the Israeli Air Forces dismantled 6 Iranian ballistic missile launchers. The Israeli Air Force, guided by the Intelligence Directorate, dismantled 6 missile launchers yesterday, which is Thursday. This was minutes before they were intended to be launched towards the territory of the State of Israel. In addition, 3 advanced Iranian defense systems were also dismantled. The combined effort to deepen the impact on the Iranian regime's firing and defense capabilities has been conducted systematically, says the IDF, and since the beginning of Operation Rising Lion. So that's a communication that's come in from the Israeli army. They've destroyed 6 Iranian ballistic missile launchers overnight. Now that is one of the many intended targets, and objectives of both the United States and Israel to destroy missile launchers across Iran, though Iran continues to say that our missile launchers are still very much capable of continued strikes, both in the Gulf and also in Israel. Now, we've seen in the Gulf, Iran is not stopped. We've seen those several missile launchers be taken down and completely destroyed, but the attack on these Gulf nations pretty much continues, which is also regularly prompting the United States of America to ensure as many Americans evacuate at the earliest and return to America. A lot of damages have been received by these U.S. military assets or U.S. military bases that are located in the heart of some of these countries. But so far, this is the big claim coming in from the IDF. They've destroyed 6 Iranian ballistic missile launchers in the latest. I do want to bring in Sanjay Suri joining us live from Israel into the conversation. Sanjay, hope you're doing well. Give us a sense of what you're witnessing on ground zero. A little while earlier, we'd heard of reports of explosions in Tel Aviv as well. Similar reports trickling in from Jerusalem. You're looking up in the sky. Can you hear something? Can you see something? Give us a sense of what's happening.
Yes, I can hear something. There are very loud explosions happening here. We've heard the sound of missiles overhead just now. I'm going to try and see if you can see some of this stuff in the sky up there. I don't know if you can see those patterns in the sky.
Very clearly, but yes, we can definitely see the patterns in the sky. Correct.
That is, I heard very loud bangs just a moment ago, and the sound of engines, clearly the sound of missiles overhead, and also banging of rocket missiles being launched from the ground level around us to intercept these. So there have been a number of interceptions clearly. This is now a situation that is developing in Tel Aviv, and I don't know if you can see, there are others coming up right. The sun is blinding us here, but there are other patterns there. Now, this is a clear ballistic missile attack on Tel Aviv. The last few days have been relatively quiet. There have been some attempts to attack Tel Aviv. Those have been neutralized, and it would appear that this latest round of missiles from Iran has been intercepted as well. The danger, of course, is at the ground level, not just from a missile hit, but from falling debris. So we do need to be a little cautious. But over the last few minutes, or few moments, I should say, when we've been speaking, it has quietened a bit. I'm not hearing any more bangs. I'm not hearing any more missiles or the jet engine sounds of these missiles in interception mode. So if you will give me a minute, we can resume our conversation.
Yeah.
Right now, it appears to have settled down a bit at the moment.
Okay, Sanjay, fingers crossed. We hope you don't get to hear any such explosions. But for now, this also means that Israel and United States have not been able to completely destroy Iran's military capabilities, because those missiles are still being launched from Iran towards Israel. Sanjay, stay safe. We will keep coming back to you. That's all we could pack for you for now in this edition of News. Thanks for watching. We'll be right back after a very short break.
These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? We can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. Yeah, it's sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another U.S. airbase
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly, or relatively slowly, perhaps too slowly for.
No, that's an interception that's happened. These are pictures
or
of
it was a SAM that was hitting something.
Yeah. The SAM that was hitting something. But I want to understand, when it is targeting these air bases, Iran, we'll call up the graphic of where all Iran has attacked so far, and we put that out here. but understand from Tom, what is Iran's strategy here? Is it going to continue to focus only on the US
disruption,
airbases?
disruption. Guerrilla, missile guerrilla, and the resulting disruption. This is exactly like strike on Ben Gurion or attempted strike on Ben Gurion, trying to disturb the Israeli Air Force operations. In this case, trying to disturb Kuwaiti operations, whether military or oil export or normal life, actually. It's similar in Bahrain, Qatar, in United Arab Emirates. The local economy in Emirates is at standstill. Nothing is going on. Nobody works. Everybody is in shelter or hiding somewhere, hunkering. So this is what Iranians want to cause. Or precisely the IRGC wants to cause, because as a punishment for these countries enabling US and Israeli strikes or supporting them in one way or the other, or housing US military facilities.
If Israel, US and Israel claim they have 80% control of the Iranian airspace,
yes,
how is it that the Iranians are able to come back and strike almost at will? Or is it that out of 10 attempts, only one is succeeding? How do you read
It's a
this?
mix of both of this.
Okay.
The claim we are controlling 80% of Iranian airspace, this is a pipe dream. Iran has a huge airspace, and with what the Americans have, whether in the Gulf of Oman or at air bases in Jordan and in Eastern Mediterranean and so on, is simply too little to exercise really effective 1000% control of even 20% of Iranian airspace.
Right.
So what they are doing is to circle around, to fly lots of UAVs and try to control what is going on with them.
Right.
Of course, sometimes this is effective, other times not. It is simply a matter of nature, how things work.
Right.
So issuing such big claims, yeah, nice and fine, but this is not indicative of the reality on the ground.
Right. Now, there are other claims. Al Jazeera is saying 2 drones destroyed in Loristan and near Tehran. So the pounding of Tehran continues by the Israelis. We'll shift focus, Tom, again. And then
hello and welcome to CNN News 18 on our continuing coverage on the conflict in the Middle East as the tensions only escalate between the United States, Israel, and the regime in Tehran. I am Ayushman Singh Jamal.
I'm Hem Kaur Saro, and of course, as we continue to bring you all the developments from West Asia, the narrative war has taken a hold as well. Escalatory rhetoric coming in from both sides, showing no signs of abating anytime soon. Here's a quick check on what we're tracking for you right now. Let's get started. As oil prices spike sharply, big energy boost for India. United States issues a 30-day waiver, allowing India to continue purchasing Russian oil.
U.S. strikes intensify against the Iranian Navy, sinking 30 ships and hitting a drone ship. Iranian ballistic missiles attack drops. Now, what we are seeing is that a drop has been of 90%, while drone attacks have fallen by 83%.
Iran then launches fresh strikes on Bahrain and Kuwait, while a state-run oil refinery was targeted in Bahrain. A U.S. base is hit in Kuwait. No reports of casualties so far.
And Israel dismantles 6 Iranian missile launchers just minutes before they were intended to be launched towards its territory. Dramatic visual surface of the ongoing onslaught between the two nations.
First visuals of the Sri Lanka Navy rescuing Iranian sailors who survived the torpedo attack on the Iranian warship. 32 survivors were brought ashore following the attack.
And India's access to critical energy supplies received a temporary lift after the United States approved a narrowly defined 30-day waiver allowing Indian refiners to purchase Russian oil already stranded. We're getting a piece of breaking news that's coming in, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the situation that's emerging in the Middle East. Now, when it comes to the debate at home, with opposition leaders also questioning why Washington is in a position to permit India's purchases and demanding clarity on what leverage the U.S. holds over New Delhi. They argue that the center must explain its stance and assert stronger independence in its foreign policy decision-making. India is seeking U.S. support to secure marine insurance cover for vessels transporting oil from the Middle East, the government's way to ensure continuity of energy supplies amid disruptions in the Strait. And big breaking news that's coming in, where Iran has launched ballistic missiles at central Israel. So central Israel facing the onslaught of the Iranian missile barrage. Remember, as we are pointing out, that despite the fact that there are strikes coming in from both the United States and Israel on those missile launchers in Iran, Iran continues to hammer Israel, especially central Israel, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem being having the bullseye on them from the Iranian side. We'll try to get more details from Ground Zero because we have our very own Sanjay Suri reporting from Tel Aviv. But that is the big update that's coming in, where Iranian ballistic missiles have been launching attacks on central Israel. Remember, it's not just the ballistic missiles. The Iranian drone launchers with a capacity of production of 10,000 per month. That is what Iran currently boasts. And these drones are causing significant damage to the energy infrastructure as well as several key military and civilian installations across Israel. And Tel Aviv and Jerusalem currently have the bullseye on them as the onslaught continues from the Iranian missile barrage, despite the fact that the United States and Israel are continuing their strikes against these military installations inside Iran. Iran seems to have the ability to move these military assets across their territory, allowing different launches from different positions across the Iranian territory. This is a very serious concern that's coming in, where despite the fact the tensions are escalating between the two nations, Iran still has the capacity to conduct these strikes.
Absolutely, of course, these are the retaliatory strikes that we are seeing right now. Iran, of course, has gone on the offensive, and a lot of U.S. and Israeli assets in the wider West Asia region are going to increasingly become the targets of such ballistic missile attacks. Going forward as well, if we were to talk about the United States and Israeli attacks so far, they've struck more than 2,000 targets. This was just within the first 100 hours or so of the operation. Remember, we're also looking at the cost of this war. So far, it's raked up a bill of over $5 billion. This is U.S. taxpayers' money that we're looking at also. But right now, in this big breaking news that we're bringing for you right now, it's Iran which has launched ballistic missiles at central Israel. As Ayushman just mentioned, of course, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv becoming the center of these targets in the latest that's coming in. Right now, volatility continues in the wider West Asia region.
Right, and it seems that there has been a miscalculation here. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're getting these visuals of that strike coming in from Tel Aviv. You can see these visuals on our screen, ladies and gentlemen. These are the missiles that are targeting central Israel. These are coming in from Tehran. We're getting these aerial shots of these missiles that have been launched from Tehran to target key installations inside central Israel. And you can see that people are scrambling to the bomb shelters as they're trying to even capture the trajectory of these missiles coming in from Tehran. You can see the trails of these missiles across the Israeli sky which are coming in, and this continues to be a threat for Israelis who consistently face these alarms. They have to rush into the bomb shelters. As you can see, the Iron Dome is also trying to intercept these missiles as they make their way towards Israeli territory. So that is the situation that Israelis are facing on a daily basis, as more and more ballistic missiles, and it's not just these ballistic missiles, it's also the drone strikes which are coming in from Iran to target those key installations. So Israel is pretty much prepared for these kind of contingencies, but the question remains, does the US have the stomach for this kind of conflict?
Right, and actually to that point, I want to add that, of course, as you mentioned, the Iron Dome, it's Iran that is having to put up with a very coveted Iron Dome and a sophisticated system here. Even certain missiles that have managed to pierce through the Iron Dome, that, of course, gives us a sense of the operational capabilities of Iran at this point also, especially at a time when its navy has become completely decimated. That's what reports are saying. But of course, this is something that we're looking at right now as well.
Right, but does it seem that Israel has made some level of a miscalculation, because Iran is now adopting the Hezbollah tactics, those homemade rockets, those drones, they are being used in these kind of strikes which are taking place inside Israel. We're also joined by Sanjay Suri, who's joining us from Tel Aviv to get the latest on these consistent ballistic missile strikes coming in from Iran against central Israel. Sanjay Suri, over to you. What is the situation currently on the ground?
Well, I hope this chat does not get interrupted by incoming missiles as did the last one, because you can almost hear these things before you see the traces in the sky, the sound of a whistling jet engine, the sound of a loud boom, which is an interceptor being launched from around us. And then you can see the traces of both in the sky and one hitting the other, and hopefully one hitting the other, which would mean that an interception has taken place once those lines appear to have crossed. But certainly there has been an attempt just a few minutes back to attack Tel Aviv with ballistic missiles. This assault has been intercepted. A couple of days there was another attempt that too has been intercepted. So far the attempts to hit Tel Aviv have been stopped, barring the one that came on day one of the war. So this is a war very much underway. It's a missile to intercept a war, and clearly Iran does have the capacity to launch missiles that are finding their way almost to target. They are being stopped just in time, but the capacity of Iran to launch such ballistic missiles clearly has not been degraded entirely. What we don't know is how much it has been reduced and how long Iran will be able to sustain this kind of attack.
Right, and also when we talk about the cost of war that we are increasingly also focusing on right now, we also have to see what this means going forward. Let's just going forward also discuss. Now, Sanjay, I want to ask you, when we talk about the Iron Dome, certain missiles and drones and the unmanned vehicles which Iran is going to be increasingly deploying in the region going forward as well, the strategy here very much appears to be that they will be, we will be seeing these drone swarms to inflict or try to inflict maximum damage on these U.S. batteries in the region as well as Israeli batteries, further raking up the cost of this war.
Well, the cost of this war is very heavily imbalanced because a drone is $30,000 to $40,000 to make, and a missile, an interceptor missile, a Patriot interceptor is $1 million plus, closer to $2 million. A third interceptor is upwards of $10 million, and that's just one interceptor. And we have signs that the U.S. and Israeli forces could be running out, could be running short in any case, as SOS has been sent to bring back THAAD and Patriot missile systems, Patriot systems particularly that were exported to South Korea. Clearly, there is a need to move them to West Asia and to position them around here. So this is an indication that there is some concern about the limited supply of these. And of course, later today in the White House, there's a meeting between President Trump and managers of a number of these companies that make these missiles, THAAD missiles particularly, like, so we're going to have an attempt now from the U.S. government and Lockheed Martin, I was going to say, an attempt from the U.S. government to try and step up production, and this will have to be an urgent task because a THAAD missile system, a battery system, typically needs 1 or 2 years to assemble and to manufacture. So how fast the U.S. can make how many, when they are needed, how many are needed, this is all a very difficult balance in the air now.
Right, and the question remains, will the rest of the Trump presidency be consumed by this conflict? Because this is the damage that US and Israel have inflicted on Iran. Sanjay, please stay with us, because if you look at all of these targets that they've hit, these are the key military installations as well as near the nuclear sites. But as per the IAEA, there hasn't been significant damage to those nuclear sites, which means that there hasn't been a leak of nuclear material from those areas. So you could avoid seeing a Chernobyl type situation emerging from those particular nuclear sites. But this is the problem. If you see the Persian Gulf and you see this area which is left pretty much bare, a lot of Iranian missile launchers as well as drone launchers have been moved into this area, and they are targeting a lot of the vessels as well as the Arab nations across the Persian Gulf, and they are causing immense damage to the energy infrastructure as well as military installations in those areas. You can take out the central leadership, you can take out the military installations, you can take out the nerve centers pretty much of the Iranian regime, but the defense capabilities seem to have gone underground. They have bunkers underground, they have command centers underground, which are coordinating the entire military infrastructure right now. The IRGC has pretty much taken control, and we're getting those details about how Khamenei put in those contingency operations in place to ensure that the IRGC can still control the military, and we're seeing that fight back coming in from Iran. Getting some more breaking news that's coming in, where Israel is bombarding Beirut as well. So as you can see, the war is also escalating against Hezbollah in Lebanon. That is the pitch that's coming in from Israel. Israel even expanding the ambit of the conflict inside Lebanon by targeting those Hezbollah bases. Also moving in its tanks to create a fresh buffer zone in southern Lebanon to take on the Hezbollah infrastructure. Hezbollah, remember, is one of the key proxy units of Iran, which continues to bombard several parts of Israel. And Israel now using the situation emerging with Iran to take on the entire Hezbollah infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Remember, Hezbollah pretty much runs Lebanon, and which is why Israel is now only expanding the ambit of war. You can see Beirut pretty much a war zone, pretty much looking like this ever since the October 7 terror attack, as Israel continues its entire bombardment run. And you can see a lot of parts of Beirut completely flattened after those Israeli airstrikes, and the Israeli military also moving into southern Lebanon. We try to get another view from Sanjay Suri as well. We'll see whether he's with us to get a view from Tel Aviv about the campaign that's emerging in Lebanon. But these are the visuals coming in from Beirut. You can see it's a literal war zone, smoke rising from this central part of the city as the bombardment operations continue against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Several of these buildings are from where these homemade rockets are used by the Hezbollah forces to launch their attacks into Tel Aviv as well as Jerusalem. And remember, that continues to be a cause for concern for the Israeli forces, given the fact that these homemade rockets are very cheap, they're easy to produce, and they are launched from these civilian areas against several parts of Israel and several military installations, as well as the civilian infrastructure in the key cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Sanjay Suri is back with us. He's reporting from Tel Aviv. So Sanjay, this expansion of the campaign in Lebanon, decode that for us. Does Israel feel that it has the opportunity to once and for all finish the Hezbollah threat?
You know, that is going to be a very difficult ask, to finish Hezbollah once and for all, to finish this kind of Iran regime once and for all. As seen in Israel and as decided by Prime Minister Netanyahu, the aim has to be to keep Israel and to keep Israelis safe from missile launches of this kind, so that the future is safe, because Israel cannot live forever and on under this continuing threat and continuing attacks. So the aim is to protect Israel entirely. What that would mean that the last missile launcher, the last missile in Iran will need to be taken out. It will mean the last drone with Hezbollah to be taken out, not just the present stock, the capacity of anyone in future to make such weapons and to launch them, that needs to be neutralized, erased, and made impossible. Now, that is a very challenging ask. There's always a possibility, and given the way technology is moving with drones, for a very small unit to assemble quite sophisticated drones and to launch them lethally long distance. So whether this war will lead to securing Israel entirely for the future is far from certain.
All right, we have more breaking information coming in. Sanjay, please do stay on with us. There's going to be lots more to discuss on this as well. Now, Dubai residents are getting a potential missile threats alert on their mobile phones. Residents of Dubai were given to understand have just received an Emirati Interior Ministry alert on their phones, urging them to shelter from potential missile threats. Remember, in Dubai, the situation remains rather volatile as well. And for more on this, we have Akanksha with us also. Now, Akanksha, let me just come to you. We're getting you more information from the newsroom as and when it comes in. Akanksha, what can you tell us about the situation in Dubai?
So this is in fact an alert which has been issued by the Emirati Interior Ministry, which is alerting all the Dubai residents to actually stay indoors, stay safe and not step out, because again, compared to say what we've seen in the last 3 days, the tensions did seem to de-escalate a little, but at the moment it seems that there's been a fresh spike with US bases across the Gulf, from Kuwait to say even the UAE particularly actually getting targeted. And that is why in fact friends and family members we all know in Dubai have also shared this information that late night yesterday they received this alert alert from the Emirati Interior Ministry, and to quote them verbatim, they have in fact received alerts on their phones urging them to shelter from potential missile threats. And that's not breaking news anymore, because we've already seen a week ago how there were missiles being directed towards residential areas, and even though security analysts say that the geographic coordinates are targeting the US assets, but because these are densely populated locations, they are inadvertently colliding into, say, residential buildings and the various skyscrapers over there, which have led to various explosions. We've seen enough visuals of those.
Thank you so much for that, Akanksha. So, of course, as the situation stands, things are rather volatile in Dubai at the moment as well. Advisories are being issued for the time being.
Absolutely, and we're getting some more updates coming in of the satellite imagery emerging from the Al-Dhafra US base in the UAE, which is also coming under attack from the Iranian forces. We'll just get those visuals for you, but we're getting this update of satellite images from the Al-Dhafra base in UAE. This is a US controlled base. You can see these different aspects of this US base in Al-Dhafra in the UAE. You can see that different parts of this base have come under attack. And you can see like how different aspects of installations inside this base are facing those strikes from the Iranian forces. This is also in Tehran in Iran, where you can see these different aspects of those key nerve centers that have been targeted by the US as well as the Israeli forces. This is the Iran state broadcaster antenna, the Revolutionary Court, the Judicial Palace and Supreme Court, as well as the presidential complex. These nerve centers have pretty much been flattened by the US and Israeli forces. Now, if you look at the airbase in Jordan, this is the Muafaq Salti air base in Jordan. You can see the entire base has pretty much been left charred by the Iranian strikes. So this is a significant blow to the US capabilities in the Middle East, given the fact that Iranian ballistic missiles and drones are able to cause this much damage on American assets in the Middle East. This hinders their entire ability to mobilize their forces. Then there is the Dahel base in Qatar. You can see the debris. You can see the size of the debris, which just shows the explosive power of the ballistic missiles as well as the Shahad drones that have been deployed by the Iranian forces, completely flattening out these installations. And these are static installations. They're not mobile installations which can mobilize other drones as well as countermeasures. And completely flattened, which means refueling, manpower deployment, completely depleted when it comes to those installations in the Middle East. Then there is the third battery near the Al-Sadr base in UAE. You can see before how this third missile, which is a very expensive and advanced missile deployed by the US forces, you can see how the entire base is intact. Then Iranian ballistic missiles and drone strikes completely flatten out that entire area. You can see that how these launchers are available in these dark parts over here, and then they are completely disappeared once you see those Iranian strikes. So you can see how when it comes to the military capabilities in the Middle East, the American capabilities to launch those counter strikes, that's why the Iranian regime is targeting these particular installations to ensure that their counter-offensive measures are completely depleted. Then there is another third battery near Al-Ruwais. This is also in the Middle East. You can see the dark parts over here. Once again, as we are pointing out, these are the dark parts which show the missile batteries which are operational at one point. And after the Iranian strikes, completely disappeared. There's just one dot over here which just shows that those military capabilities for the third missiles, which are essential for the countermeasures in the Middle East, being completely depleted by those Iranian attacks. This is only raising the cost of war for the United States, for Donald Trump, who is still in talks with defense contractors to boost production. Then you have the Al-Dhafra US base in UAE, which we were talking about. You can see the charred remains of different aspects of the base over here, where Iranian missiles as well as drones have continuously bombarded these particular sites. They haven't been able to counter the drone threat coming in from Iran, because Iran at this stage has the capacity of building 10,000 of these drones every month. And you can see the explosive power of these drones, which are only sending chaos through the energy markets and slowly and steadily in this war of attrition, depleting the military capabilities of the United States as well as Israel in the Middle East by particularly targeting these military bases, which the United States clearly did not have any contingency operations for. We're getting an update from my colleague Rifat, who's also reporting from Israel. This is what he got for us.
तो फिर से सायरन बज रही हैं इसराइल में, टेल अवीव में हर तरफ से सायरन बज रही हैं, आप सुन सकते हैं। ये खतरे की घंटी होती है जब ईरान की तरफ से मिसाइल अटैक किया जाता है, मिसाइल अटैक लॉन्च किया जाता है तो सायरन बजती है, आप सुन सकते हैं। हर तरफ से सायरन बज रही हैं, उसका मतलब ईरान की तरफ से एक और मिसाइल अटैक जो है लॉन्च किया गया। लगातार मिसाइल अटैक्स जो है लॉन्च किए जा रहे हैं ईरान की तरफ से, और ये टेल अवीव का शहर है। सायरन हर तरफ से बज रही है और हमारा कैमरा है उसी डायरेक्शन पे जहां से ईरान है। तो ये देख सकते हैं आप एक्सक्लूसिव विजुअल्स, ये देखिए किस तरीके से मिसाइल जो है वो फेंके जा रहे हैं। ये न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया के कैमरा में कैद हो चुका है। यहां पे मिसाइल जो है ईरान का यहां पे शायद इंटरसेप्ट हुआ है। अभी हम देख रहे हैं, देख सकते हैं कि टेल अवीव में आसमान में किस तरीके से मिसाइल का छाप है। न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पे आप एक्सक्लूसिव ये विजुअल्स देख सकते हैं। ईरान की तरफ से मिसाइल अटैक लॉन्च किया गया और अब यहाँ पे हम देख रहे हैं कि ये बिल्कुल हमारी आंखों के सामने, और जोरदार धमाका, ऊपर से बम बरस रहे हैं, आप देख सकते हैं।
Right, we're also joined by Lieutenant General KJ Singh, former Army commander on the broadcast. Thank you, General Singh, for joining us as the war continues to rage in the Middle East. How do you assess the military capabilities of Iran to continue to persist in this onslaught from Israel, and the United States? Iran, even though it seems to have been bombarded, its nerve centers completely depleted and destroyed, it still has the coordination as well as the capabilities to launch counteroffensives.
Thank you and Jai Hind to all your viewers. What can be fairly assessed, because there is this wave of narrative shaping which is taking place, and there are boastful claims being made from both sides. But what can be fairly assessed is that Iran has suffered huge, big losses in terms of its top leadership. It has suffered destruction, extensive destruction. But has that completely destroyed their resilience? I'm not too sure. Here I would like to draw your attention to a report which appeared in New York Times, and it's not media narrative by Iran or something, it is New York Times. They tell us that, like you so graphically brought out, the attacks carried out on various bases. Now, what is getting destroyed on the American side is highly expensive and not easy to replace radars, radomes, and surveillance equipment. And that is the backbone which vectors all the defenses, all the escorts, and war-fighting capability. Right. So, to a certain extent, like you brought out so well, that inexpensive drones, which are cheap, can be made by thousands, are destroying high-tech gadgetry of American bases.
Right.
At the end of this war, America will have to carry out a very harsh, very true check, assessment. Was it worth it to have unleashed this kind of thing? Because to suffer destruction on a high-tech equipment, economically it can be debilitating.
Right.
How will you replace that? And another factor which needs to be taken into account is that while you have degraded their command structure, have you completely destroyed it? No. There is this Revolutionary Guard, there is Basij militia.
Right.
Now, what is worrying is some of these people, steeped in the Shia culture of sacrifice, and even suicidal kind of suffering, they have been unleashed as free radical agents. And in their own small groups, without coordination or an overall overarching command structure, they are unleashing attacks. Like it
Right,
was
General Singh, we're getting an update when you talk about the command structure inside Iran. We're getting an update on that. My colleague Haim gets us more details.
Right, so this is the latest that we're hearing right now. Remember, Donald Trump has said that the goal here is the end of the current regime. However, that's not what we're seeing right now. But also, there is no clarity on what's really going to happen. And in the breaking news that we're getting right now, we're given to understand that Iran is purposely, deliberately delaying that decision, of course, due to security concerns and what the situation is in West Asia at the moment. Let's just go across to Akanksha in the newsroom. Akanksha, what can you tell us? One would expect that they would take such a strategic call.
And on expected lines, because remember just 2 days ago we had been informed that there was a prayer meet to happen to mourn the killing of the Ayatollah, which was supposed to be happening in Tehran, but this was a call taken by the IRGC to delay that prayer meet. The three-day mourning period for the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has already started, and what sources are telling us that the IRGC is still in fact commanding significant clout right now, even with regards to say the succession of Murtaza, which was a decision that the council had to take under pressure from the IRGC. They in fact have broken away from the overall protocol of nominating somebody who is in the bloodline of the Ayatollah. But as far as right now making that formal announcement that Murtaza is indeed going to be the next Ayatollah succeeding Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, there is a strategic decision to actually delay that announcement, because we know that inadvertently the attention will then shift to Murtaza and eliminating Murtaza, because Steve Witkoff and even the U.S. President, all of Trump administration have issued a warning that anybody who continues with the same belief of targeting the United States, of targeting Israel, will, and if that is going to be the one who will be succeeding the Ayatollah, will be the next in the line of fire. So that's why there's a strategic decision.
Now, Akanksha, just for more clarity on that, of course, when Donald Trump says that he very much wants to be a part of whoever is elected next in Iran, how long can Iran also drag this out and play this cat and mouse game?
This is why their military strength right now is, going to decide the overall trajectory of not just the succession, but also the autonomy that Iran is currently exercising. They do believe that the IRGC is still a powerful, intimidating force right now. They command 150,000 troops, and even though the IRGC headquarters in Tehran have been targeted by Israel and the United States, the security experts are saying that there's only damage done to the buildings, and the force, the strength is still very much with the IRGC right now. So we'll have to see if US and Israel can actually influence the overall polity without boots on the ground.
All right, Akanksha, do stay on with us. Of course, there's going to be lots more to unpack. We're getting some more breaking information right now. Sounds of siren blaring at a British base in Cyprus. This is what we're hearing. Rhea, what can you tell us?
So here's where things are getting interesting, Haim, because we do know there are certain contradictory versions that came in from Keir Starmer. Now we are hearing of fresh sirens that are blaring in Cyprus. We're talking about the RAF Akrotiri here. Earlier also, the hangar of RAF Akrotiri has been attacked, although even the UK has come on record and they have said that it was not a direct Iranian attack. It could be possibly Iranian proxies. It could come in from Lebanon, because that is where the proxies have in fact been mobilized after these strikes on Iran by US and Israeli forces. Now there are fresh sirens that are blaring. We also know how a UK Royal Navy destroyer is already there in the Mediterranean. This was after the Iranian ballistic missiles ended up striking the hangar allegedly. So things are still very, very unclear. We also know that Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, has already allowed US to use the UK bases, but that also had happened before these strikes, the missile strikes at the hangar. So what really is happening at Cyprus? Is Iran directly involved? Is it the proxies that are now going ahead and striking? The UK base, that also gets really interesting. But right now, this is the latest development. Sirens are definitely, they have been heard at the UK base there, the RAF Akrotiri, and this is the second such development that is happening in that area, which is now also looking at how this entire conflict has gone ahead and gone beyond just West Asia, gone further into getting involving nations like the UK and also France.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Greha. Of course, that gives us a better sense of where things stand right now. Of course, this is the latest that we're getting from Cyprus. Another piece of breaking information that we're getting right now, UK has arrested 4 people on suspicion of spying for Iran. Now, Akanksha, I quickly just want to also tie in the fact that when we talk about the European nations, of course, we know where Pedro Sanchez stands on this entire matter. Going forward, how long do you think European nations can rally behind what's happening in West Asia?
The fact of the matter is, go by the information that's just trickled in. 4 arrests have been made by the Scotland Yard. The counter-terrorism police unit of the Scotland Yard has arrested 1 Iranian national, 3 dual British-Iranian nationals, so 4 arrests in total. They believe that they were spying on Jewish individuals and Jewish locations. So as much as Europe may want to maintain a cautious stance, as you rightly highlighted, Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, all of them have been of the view, along with the French President, that they do not want to directly get involved in this conflict, but it is inadvertently spilling over to Europe, as we see that there were these Iranian nationals who were spying on behalf of Iran on these Jewish members. And remember, you have the Jewish community spread all over the globe, particularly in the United States and Europe as well. So for how long will they be able to stay away, and or will they call for dialogue and diplomacy to take place? We'll have to see. But for now, we can tell our viewers that the Scotland Yard has made 4 arrests. 1 is of an Iranian national, 3 of them are British-Iranian nationals.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Akanksha. So that's where things stand. This is the latest that we're getting right now. 4 arrests in the UK on suspicion of spying. So this is the latest. And as Akanksha mentioned, there is some cautious distance there. But clearly, we're seeing the impact way beyond West Asia at this point as well. All right. So for more, let's just go across to Ayushman, who's bringing us more updates from the studio.
And absolutely, those are the latest updates which are coming in from the war zone. And as Haim was pointing out, the ambit of the entire conflict is only expanding. We will continue to track all those developments coming in. For now, quick break. More news and updates on the other side.
These are drone attacks again in Kuwait. They are targeting the air bases, and the Iranians, are you willing to buy this? So we can hear the same Shahid drone. Oh, these are the sirens.
That's the sirens. Yeah, it's sirens.
Now, is that a missile or is it again UAV?
Hard to say from here.
Yeah, but they have targeted yet another U.S. airbase
with missiles, yes, as well.
With missiles as well.
It's moving very slowly.